Yes, hi, hello, welcome back to your least favorite podcast, the Gooncast. It's me, James, Saber0307. I'm once again joined by Goons.
Yeah. Happy to be part of somebody's least favorite thing, because if we can't be the best, might as well be the worst.
Exactly.
It is my goal to be the wish upon of podcasts.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
that's
Joey
our new
King guest star
tagline.
when.
That's our new tagline. We are the wish upon of podcasts.
Oh, beautiful.
Wear that with honor.
All right. Well, I am Kat, aka the Attack Cat on Twitch. Dialogue designer by day, writer / horror enthusiast by night.
And once again, it's your boy Lee Alder, the Valley Jester, fantasy and horror enthusiast. Joey King, please return my emails.
Yes.
Please, Joey.
Please.
And hey, we have a new guest.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Hey, you guys heard that, right?
Yes.
It did play perfect. Yeah,
It
that's
did play.
yeah, beautiful. All right, hey, Rent, how about
Amazing.
you introduce yourself?
I can't now. Hello, it's the Gooncast #1 fan. It's me, the Rent Man.
Remake.
Oh yeah.
So
How's it going?
So who are you? Explain what you do.
Explain
Who
yourself.
am I? Explain
Yeah.
myself?
Validate your appearance on this fine program.
Yes, god
Oh
damn it.
man.
We only accept the highest qualified candidates.
Not just anyone can appear on the Wish Upon of podcasts, alright?
I just want to meet Joey King.
You get a pass.
Oh.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what are we here to discuss today? Goons? Remakes, right? Video game remakes?
Yeah, we're doing
Yes.
video game remakes and remasters and the culture and sort of
Yeah, the difference.
the difference between them.
The misconceptions.
Yeah.
So as a sort of caveat before we begin our discussion, James and I have both worked on different iterations of The Last of Us. So James was on the original PS4 remake, and I was on the most recent PS5 remake.
Oh, you see,
Or
you're
yours was
already
the remaster.
you're already
See,
confusing the
that's the thing.
terminology.
We're gonna get into that. So yeah, James was on the remaster for PS4. I was on the remake for PS5. And because of that, and because we have a policy here in the Goon Squad where we do not talk about work stuff, we're not going to be talking about The Last of Us.
Yes.
So, apologies. I know that that's kind of a big hot button, like remake, remaster kind of discussion, but because it's very, very close to us as people, and also just,
Out of respect and not
out of professional courtesy.
Yes.
Not gonna do that.
Yes.
Yeah, we have fun with the podcast and all, but the second this starts to infringe on our professional lives, sorry, y'all can fuck off.
Yeah. Besides, that won't be a problem because 2023 has been fucking chock-a-block full of goddamn video game remakes. We had Dead Space in January, and we have Resident Evil 4 remake, and we had Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, and upcoming later this year is going to be Layers of Fear and Silent Hill 2.
Yes.
And there's a bunch more other remakes on the horizon.
Yes.
And there's been a bunch of remakes in the past, and there's a bunch of fucking remasters.
So we have a ton of stuff to talk about, but just want to throw it out there that, like, if anybody's sitting here being like, wait, why didn't they talk about one of the biggest, like, remakes that just happened? That is why.
Yeah. I don't
Sorry.
I don't want to go down yeah, you don't want to go down that road. Sometimes dead is better.
Game good, Pedro Pascal hot, next.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So I guess first things first, what is a video game remake? I know this seems like a redundant question, but considering the fact that I keep seeing online the terms remaster and remakes being used interchangeably.
Yes.
And sometimes devs fall into that.
Yes. Again, I am also, like, incredibly, guilty of that because there's a very, like, thin line between them, and I think that line has gotten blurred a lot. And James, you can talk a little bit more about the history of that, but there was a sort of, like, in the, I want to say the early aughts of the 2010s, where people were quote unquote remaking games, but they were actually just remasters.
Yeah.
Like, res textures and or ports.
I mean, I've been looking
HD
up the
collection.
HD collection stuff. I've been seeing I remember distinctly seeing the phrase HD remake being thrown around, and that being used for remasters.
Yeah.
I can't find any goddamn evidence of it, of course, now that you're doing this. But I know this is a thing. Maybe it's a fucking Mandela effect shit. But either way, there definitely is some like weird shenanigans with this, especially when you have instances of a game being like Shadow of the Colossus got a remaster on the PlayStation 3 and then a remake on the PlayStation 4, or you have Resident Evil 96, which was remade for the GameCube, and then that GameCube remake was then later remastered. It's not as like a clear one-to-one as like when a movie gets remade, where it's a different cast, different crew. This is like
right. So for the sake of a clearly defined like difference, how would you define a remake? How would you define a remaster?
For me, a remaster basically it's just the original game, original source code with stuff upscaled and like clear textures, clear graphics. Maybe it's in a different aspect ratio than it initially released.
Would this count for the Skyrim?
Skyrim 100%. It's as far as I'm like remaster is
Diablo
effectively
2.
It's effectively a port.
Yes.
Basically. It's an enhanced port.
An enhanced port essentially is a remaster. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Whereas a remake does have to it doesn't have to invent things whole cloth or like make new things like, you know, from the existing. So actually a couple of the examples I have as like my really, really good remakes are things that literally just took the original one-to-one and, you know, just made it modern, essentially.
Yep.
But it does have to involve new creation in terms of assets. You know, sometimes going back into the source code and reimagining things, sometimes making something in a new engine.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, the Resident Evil remakes are the perfect example of that, where they're now in the RE engine. And that's like a huge, you know, a huge difference, obviously, from when they were these tank controlled kind of point and click puzzle games. Now that they're like full 3D, slightly more actiony.
And I know it's the trendy thing to shit on Blizzard Entertainment right now for obvious reasons. Reset the clock. But I think that their remaster of StarCraft was a picture perfect way of how to pull this off in a way that breathed new life into the game. When you are running StarCraft Remastered, you can almost look at it as like a different sheen put over the base game, to the extent that when you're running it, if you hit the F5 key during play, it just transitions you back to original. You can just toggle back and forth between base and remastered. Because the actual stuff on the battlefield is the original. So like their unit sizes aren't changing. Nothing about the way functionally changes.
Yeah,
and I think that's perfect.
The Halo 1 and 2 remasters did that as well. It's a neat feature that sometimes pops up, and I always appreciate that when a remaster does that. I know it's difficult to do, but you know, like it's very cool. And that's usually for like more drastic visual overhauls in some stuff, but in some stuff like a remaster can be like, it just like Wind Waker HD on the Wii U, right? For me, when I play Wind Waker HD on the Wii U, it looks like how I remember the original GameCube game. Obviously, everything is a lot clearer.
Yes.
But like it looks like how I remember the game. It may not be like, unless you have the two side by side, you might not necessarily at a glance be able to tell it's the remaster. But like it is a beautiful fucking game, regardless of the console you play on.
Yo, how many times have you all had that feeling where you go back to check out a game that you played as a kid, and one that you know you sunk like hours into, and then you see it as a jaded 30-year-old and go, oh my god.
But
the things that cast back then for cutting edge.
Yep.
And I know Rent has some experience too with diving into remasters, since he is a purist, someone who does not emulate, and so he's been forced to go through Silent Hill HD collection for a lot of his speedrunning stuff, which is one
I
of the
do
worst
own the
remakes.
originals.
You do,
Okay.
but it was like only recently that you got like stuff working for streaming the originals, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I definitely want to hear about this from you because the Silent Hill HD collections are like highly regarded as some of the hottest jank in that whole
Yes.
sphere. And
Yeah.
having never been hands-on with it, I don't understand it. So what makes them so dreadful?
Part of this issue with like so Kingdom Hearts actually had this exact same problem where back
What do you mean?
in
Kingdom Hearts is perfect.
Well, no. this is just a wider instance and an instance where something was publicly commented on where back in the 90s and early 2000s, when you shipped a game, devs had this funny, nasty habit of just throwing out the gold masters and not archiving the source codes.
Yep.
So like when the Kingdom Hearts got remastered, there was no source code. There was no like gold disc version of Kingdom Hearts. So they technically, you could almost consider it like kind of a remake because they had to rebuild and remake those games from scratch to
Damn you,
remaster them.
Xehanort.
A similar issue happened with Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, where the gold masters were not archived, and Konami, the last builds they had archived were like beta versions of Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3.
It was alpha.
Maybe alpha. And they passed those games to a team that was relatively small and didn't have too much experience making video games. Like if you look into, I think it was Hijinks. I could be mistaken. Yeah, Hijinks. Most of their stuff was like a lot of shovelware type garbage on the Wii. Like I don't want to like throw shade at the developer, but you got to start somewhere. And Konami basically considered this a cheap, quick and dirty project. They had never remastered anything before. So on top of having to learn how to remaster a game and having a very, very cheap budget and having a very, very tight deadline because Konami wanted to get a whole bunch of Silent Hill games out in time for Silent Hill Revelation 3D, film that we discussed on the Gooncast. Yeah, Pet My Direwolf.
God.
On top of all that shit, the devs had to refinish the games. So they were like bug-ridden messes that like weren't that had bugs that were not in the shipped versions of the game. So they
I believe the Xbox version also didn't get a patch, and only the PS.
Not. Yeah. Because at least in that era of game dev, I'm not entirely sure because I have never really heard too much about it. I'm assuming it's generally the same thing. But like, at least when I was working at 2K, it costs like 10 to 20 grand to submit for a patch, right? And Konami didn't want to spend that money, and they basically kind of evaluated which is the larger player base. Oh, there's more PS3 sold in Japan. We're going to make a patch for PS3. Sorry, Xbox, get fucked.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bugs in those versions that weren't in the originally. Like, for example, there's the infamous screenshot where Maria has teeth for her eyes.
I have not seen that one just yet.
Yeah.
That's
God.
amazing.
That's fantastic. That sounds like something that Lee would Photoshop into, Morbius' face or something.
Wait, I thought we weren't going to discuss games that we worked on.
They didn't have the original font for the Silent Hill Ranch, so they used Comic Sans.
Oh,
Beautiful.
no.
Yes.
Iconic.
The fog wasn't finished, and they didn't properly fix it, so like you can actually see the edge of the world, especially on Lake Toluca.
Okay, so my experience with the Silent Hill HD collection is that so I played the original Silent Hill 2 and 3 in college because one of my roommates had the console it was on originally. But I only started console gaming with the PS3, like barring like the Wii games and stuff like that. I had a PS3. That was the earliest thing I had. So when the HD collection came out, I was like, fuck yeah, I can finally actually like get hands-on, because it was, it was me and like two of my roommates like trading the controller back and forth to play Silent Hill 2. So, I was like, I can finally experience it fully. And I booted it up, and the fog looked so fucking shitty that I was just like,
Yeah.
turn off the PS3.
Yeah, they
It's very terrible.
It was, and I think I heard that it was like because the console limitations of the PS2 or whatever it was originally on, there were less of those on the PS3. They were like, oh, we can render more, so like the fog can be more detailed looking. But it just ended up looking like, yeah, you could see the edge of the world. Like it wasn't like render fog. It was just like actual like, physically created fog, and then it was just like, well, you could see through this. Like
yeah, it's a complete hot mess. Like there's a really good Matt McMuscles video about the Silent Hill HD collection. The other big sticking point is the voice acting, because there was this big kerfuffle about royalties in regards to voice acting, stemming from I believe a misconception, because there have been other voice actors like the new James, or not new anymore because the game's getting a fucking remake, but Troy Baker was cast as James Sunderland, and he's like, no, there's no such thing as royalties unless that gets like negotiated into your contract. And because Konami didn't want to like deal with it, there was this like big kerfuffle, and they recast everybody, but then they managed to like renegotiate and like compensate the original voice actors for Silent Hill 2, which made it so that the voice actors for Silent Hill 2, the original audio could be used, and they couldn't track down, I believe it was Heather Morris, who is Heather Mason's original voice actress. And because of that, and because Konami didn't want to take any chances, they were just like, fuck it, only new voices for Silent Hill 3.
Terrible.
And that's been kind of a big point of contention, because even though the voice acting in the older Silent Hill games isn't necessarily up to conventional high-quality standards, considering the subject matter and the characters, it kind of makes them more unique and offbeat, like a David Lynch film, basically, where it's like a weird type performance. So hearing Guy Seehee or whoever deliver weird lines in a very weird manner feels right in Silent Hill 2, versus hearing my video game voice acting voice stalker voice James Sunderland just feels wrong.
Listen, he's great, but yes, there are times where he's been cast in roles where I'm just like, I don't think this was the right decision. Like, he played, spoiler alert, I guess, for in the one like Batman prequel game, where it was like, oh, he's playing a brand new villain. Who could it be? Oh, it's the Joker. Like,
yeah,
he's
Joker,
brand new.
baby.
So he essentially spent the entire time doing a Mark Hamill's Joker impression, but like younger, and it was just kind of like, hey guys, you're hiring Troy Baker, maybe let him be a cool new character that we can enjoy. Like, he was supposed to be Black Mask, I think, which I was like, oh fuck yeah.
Oh,
but then they took out the mask, and surprise, it's the Joker.
Yeah.
It was just really bad.
Awful.
Yeah, or at the very least, just let him do his own interpretation of the Joker. Like,
yeah, exactly.
In that Under the Red Hood movie, they have John DiMaggio as the Joker, and he does not try to do Mark Hamill's Joker, and he fucking kills it.
That performance
he's great.
fucks.
Yes. Yeah.
It's super
There's
good.
also oh my gosh, what is his name? The one who there's one of the cartoons that there's another guy completely who did a take on the Joker, and also fantastic. But like, and a completely different look and feel than Mark Hamill's Joker, and it's just like, yeah, we can do that. Like,
oh, I gotta go rewatch Under the Red Hood now. Oh my god.
Yes, you do.
What a delightful family reunion. Let's take pictures. We'll do all three of us, and then I'll take one of the two of you, and then me and the crowbar.
It's great. But yeah, it's it was kind of basically a hot mess, and that day was kind of a bad day for survival horror, because the only other horror game that came out on that day was Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City.
Hey, I pre-ordered that one.
I did too. I pre-ordered both of them. I got them on the same day.
I only got Operation and Midnight Release.
Boys.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, boys.
Well, that entire, because they both came out in March, and the kicker too was that Silent Hill Downpour also came out that month. So it was basically, for my birth month, a really, really dour note of horror games.
I'm sorry, Jam.
It was.
But yeah, I remember enjoying Downpour when I first played it, but on
I appreciate elements of it, but it's buggy
exactly.
as fuck.
There's things that were good about it, but also things that were very not good about it.
Yeah,
I wish the creatures would have been a little bit more like the homecoming ones.
Yeah. As opposed to just homeless-looking people.
Me.
Yeah.
So that's basically all the
terrifying
monsters.
of all.
Yeah.
Silent Hill, Los Angeles.
So yeah, it's
I'm the main character.
Remasters are basically just like an enhanced looking port. I think we can kind of agree on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
and also a thing we had talked about answering before we kind of got really into the meat of the discussion was what makes a remake or a remaster acceptable.
It doesn't shit all over the legacy of the original game.
Yeah.
Like
in my mind, they're
like
also
I think most start with good intentions, but
yes.
I would think so, and I know that there's tons of things behind the scenes, especially since I've had a peek behind the curtain. But it is a bit weird when you have remasters coming out and they are just in like the absolute worst state. Like not just the Silent Hill remaster, but like on the polar opposite side of Blizzard, Warcraft 3 Reforged. And then more recently, like the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy remaster, which stung extra hard because Rockstar decided to delist all of the previous versions.
That's right.
Which is just a super dick move. Don't do that. Oh yeah, and Sega did the same thing with Sonic Origins collections, where it was like
right.
a remaster, but it was in a worse state than the original games. Like it's for me, what I just want is like maybe some slight gameplay tweaks to maybe like update the feel slightly for like to iron out some of the wrinkles or whatever. But for the most part, I just want the original experience running on modern hardware. So I don't have to dig out old shit or emulate or anything.
I think for me the two big things are time and modern hardware.
That's
for sure.
The big
like
one,
like if the game is unplayable without a remake or a remaster, then do it. Like if it's literally like on a defunct console that I can never get my hands on ever again because they just don't make them anymore without like going on eBay somewhere, right? It's just like, hey, I don't want to do this. I would like to be able to experience this piece.
Yeah, especially when the game in question is uber rare and assholes are charging $600 to $1,000 for it, aka Haunting Ground or Rule of Rose.
Yes, exactly.
There's. Go ahead.
Well, I also think that like in addition, if there is a game where like a modern update would bring, like a modern update that still involves sort of the original creation team, where they're like, this actually brings our original vision a little bit more into focus.
There you go.
I like that kind of shit too, and I'll explain specifically which one I mean when we start talking about it.
Yeah, I have one of those too. What about you, Ren? What makes a remaster work for you?
You pretty much just covered all the bases.
Yeah.
I mean,
essentially,
such a big part of this is like, if you want to bring an old title to a fresh set of eyes using modern technology, then if you're not trying to change too much of the core material along the way, and you're just trying to present it in a new shiny package, then I can
Mhm.
totally understand it. There's a jaded part of me that wants to just say it's creative bankruptcy.
Yeah.
To like keep going back to the well and keep regenerating these old franchises and old titles. But then every so often there will be one that's being put out on a new console, on new updated hardware, where even though it might just be like, I don't want to say a soulless one-to-one copy. You know, if it like the easy example to go for would be the one James already mentioned of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
The GameCube remake is maybe about as damn near perfect for a remake as you can get.
Yeah.
It honors the source material. It tries to more accurately convey the original vision because of the advances in the hardware controls. And it adds in some fun new stuff of like, oh, okay, you know, we've seen how the gaming landscape has changed. And survival horror is now this established genre. It's this established premise. So we're going to add in some higher difficulty, like Crimson Heads.
We're going to like class it up to like iron out a lot of the B-movie unintentional comedy from the original game.
Yes.
And like another one that I think was very appropriate for the time, and I'm going to have a big asterisk on this one that I'm going to follow up right after. I thought that redoing Fire Red, Leaf Green as remakes of Pokemon Red and Blue were great. Release it on the new hardware, and then have post-game stuff, including Pokemon from the new generations, to kind of tie into everything. But then the creative bankruptcy kicks in, and they go, "Okay, we need to go back to Red and Blue again. Let's go Pikachu and let's go Eevee."
Yeah.
Where now they are calling it kind of a remake of Red and Blue.
But it's also not.
But it's also not.
Completely bastardizing the core system of the game. Now, that being said, I weirdly liked Let's Go Eevee.
Yeah,
I
me
just
too.
bristle a little bit when people call it a remake of Red or Blue.
Yes. It's like it. I would say it's almost more heavily inspired by those original games. You know what I mean?
It's Spock with the beard and the sash.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, where like I feel like it was more focused on like enhancing that sort of relationship between you and your core Pokemon than it was being like a real Pokemon game. Sort of like how RCS was trying to do something kind of insane and different, and it wasn't trying to be like, we're a new mainline Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Even though, oh boy, we'll not get into that.
Yeah, that's a whole different wormhole we could sink ourselves into, because it's like, oh, Arceus was like this great shot in the dark of trying something new, and it worked. Do you guys want to keep exploring that idea? No. Copy that.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'm really.
guys.
I know that Scarlet and Violet were in development simultaneously, so they couldn't have been influenced too much by Arceus. But my God, I really hope that they go back and say like, okay, what did we do right with Arceus that like people are really pissed off about for Scarlet and Violet?
It's fucking wild that they can make a Pokemon game where I got to the Elite Four and then just said, man, I'm bored, fuck this game, and just didn't finish it.
Yeah, jeez.
Yo.
Yeah. Well, yeah, once again, we turn this into a rant against Pokemon.
Hey, it's fine.
Look,
hold on. Before we move on from rant against Pokemon, because Rent wasn't here for that. Rent, what are your thoughts on Scarlet and Violet?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Oh, man, it's just a buggy mess.
Yeah.
I did go through a bunch of the game offline, which was like the, what is it, that quest that you had to go around and collect stuff for, what's his name? The rival guy? I'm already forgetting about that game. It's just like, with the stupid sandwich shit.
The plants.
The
he had the dying dog.
Yes.
Yeah, my balls stiff.
My balls are stiff.
My balls stiff. Yeah.
My balls
are stiff. Yeah.
Yeah, my balls are stiff. Yeah, that one. I did a bunch of that stuff offline, and then when I was streaming it, it was just the majority of like the gym battles. Nothing extra. I thought it was very silly to fight that, like those car bosses.
Oh my God.
It was just very silly.
Yes.
It was very repetitive too.
Yeah.
Give me something
was incredibly
different.
repetitive.
I will never forget that my first impression of Scarlet and Violet was seeing the car boss.
Was on
My
Grease stream, right?
First, yep.
Yep.
Listeners, I tuned into the stream of a friend of the podcast, Greedy Kumquat, and the first thing I see is her in battle with an actual car.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay.
Yeah.
I see where some of the complaints are coming from.
Yeah, and then I immediately bought you the game, and you said why. Anyways, back to like remakes. It's like it's what is your ideal video game remake? Like we you kind of touched upon that, and you said like you had something that you were going to get into, Kat, and Lee kind of touched on like my ideal video game remake, which I've already mentioned before in my favorite games list of Resident Evil 1 remake. So like what is like an ideal video game remake for you? And like what's a good example, what's a bad example, so on and so forth.
Okay. This is actually going to be a very positive answer for me because I actually have two good examples, which I think both highlight the two things that matter to me a lot with remakes, and like specifically sort of the two different approaches, which will become clear very shortly. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, which, I will never miss an opportunity to talk about this game, is Myst.
Yeah.
You'll never miss an opportunity.
I will never miss an opportunity. But yeah.
Move over, Lee. Don't put that in your body. It's time for Cat Talks about Myst.
Exactly. Goddamn. But so yeah, I mean, as you all are more than aware, Myst has been remade, or it's been remastered countless times. It's mostly, again, been the way we've defined remasters. It's been a lot of like ports to new consoles, up-res textures, just kind of trying to get things to look a little better, but to still have that feel of like, it's a point and click slideshow, effectively, as people like to deride it. Previously, there was an early attempt at a modern remake with Real Myst. So that came out in, I believe, 2014. And it was notable because this was the first time they tried to make Myst with, like, it might not have been the first time they tried, but it was the first, like, major time that they had real 3D movement and, like, dynamic environments. They were, like, lauding all of these, like, new things that they were adding. In my mind, Real Myst was a failure because it broke the immersion that was sort of inherent in the originals. I think, I mean, obviously a modern audience looks at those original games and says, how the fuck could anyone get immersed in that kind of stuff? But let me tell you, in like 1994 or whenever the fuck I first played it, like, you did. It was very much like a, oh my god, I'm here. And it was that combined with, it was the art combined with the music, combined with like all of the sound effects of the different areas you were in, to the point where they were like incorporated into puzzles. And, it was all of those things. But the 2014 remake didn't really have the graphical fidelity that other games of that time had. So you were seeing Myst, but it was this like very low quality 3D version of Myst. And walking around in that space, like everything felt so dead and so like this was a game that was originally from 1994 and, somebody just like slapped those textures onto 3D models and called it a day. Which, again, I'm no hate. I'm like, they tried, but it didn't work for me because it like basically was this like halfway point between a fully modern 3D game and Myst, and it didn't quite nail that merger. Now most recently, I think 2021, Cyan Worlds released another Myst remake. And this was another fully 3D dynamic environments. Well, actually, yeah, I think dynamic environments, but just another attempt. But like done completely modern, like and this time I think they like absolutely fucking knocked it out of the park. It ended up on my favorite games of that year list. I think it was number 1, in fact. Like I think it was like no surprise that I was just like, yeah, number 1. But talk about this, that like this is very much, they did not redo anything at its core, right? Like, Myst is still Myst. They didn't redo the puzzles, even though there is a mode that you can play where the puzzle solutions are randomized, so you can kind of get like a newer, like a fresher experience than if you're like me and you've played it a million times already and you know the solutions by heart for the most part. But basically what it did was it kind of brought the level of immersion that I experienced as a little kid on my, you know, like my iMac 2 or whatever the fuck, the old school Apple computer, and just kind of brought that to a modern audience where the 3D environments are incredible. They're photorealistic. You can walk around in them. You can, you know, you listen to your own footsteps. You're hearing all of the sound effects in world that you were hearing, you know, when it was just a still image you could click on, but you're hearing them in a world space. And I know that there is a VR version, and I haven't tried that yet, but it was just like, to me, it just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And then the second example I have, which in my mind is also a really good example, is the new Sherlock Holmes games. So specifically Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. I talked about, I've made mention of it a little bit because I was really excited for this game to come out, and I really dug it. And I think it's important to note that, like, you know, the developers are currently dealing with a war in their home country, and that effectively after they that kind of put a bit of a delay on a lot of the chapter 1 content they had been planning. There's still like DLC content in the works, or maybe it's already been canceled, I don't know. But they sat there and they said, well, we still want to make a game, but like we can't make a full-fledged sequel to this game because we just, you know, going to be really challenging. So they decided to go back to a game that they made in 2008, Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, and say, okay, we're gonna take the basic plot of this game, a lot of the script, most of the script, and we're gonna remake this completely, like ground up. And this is all in their, you know, their modern engine. Everything is like, you know, all of the assets are redone. And, you know, they even, like, redid a ton of all of the environments. 2008 Awakened had a lot of issues with sort of, like, meandering level designs, where, you know, like, a lot of them were, like, store-bought assets. You know, I mean, sort of like the issues we had with, like, Faz, with some of their stuff, where it's like, oh, this area looks incredibly samey, because it's just, you know, one building copy-pasted 18 times or whatever. And that was definitely the problem with, like, some of the areas in the original Awakened. But they made it, like, an actual designed level where, you know, the shops are where you expect them to be, and also there's some sense of, like, the world space that, like, oh yeah, this is a space that was designed and makes sense. Not every place is interactive, but I can see the street name, I can see the name of the shop over there. It's like a unique shop, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, I think you can still go back and play the original Awakened. I did very recently. I think I did that on stream. And it's fine, but like everything that they did for this remake elevated it. And that's I think the key part is, like, as long as the remake elevates its source material, which I think both the Myst remake and the Sherlock Holmes Awakened remake did. I think that really prevents it to me from being this soulless cash grab that you mentioned. But yeah, sorry, I have rambled a lot. What about y'all? What are y'all?
You have passion when it comes to this.
Yes, I do. God damn it!
It is not on me to interrupt such a powerful stream of consciousness.
I admire you.
Thank you.
I admire its purity.
But I want to hear from y'all. I want to hear y'all's, like, examples. If you have stuff.
I'll get mine out of the way. Well, one of them, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get hands-on with, but as an outsider, it looks like the perfect remake, because it seems to accomplish a lot of the things that I would want. And that's my second favorite game of all time, Shadow of the Colossus. I have not had a chance to be hands-on with the full remake that was released. And from everything I've seen, it looks just like a graphical overhaul You know, they didn't like add new colossi with new, you know, functions to beat them. They fleshed out the overworld, so there's a little more like stuff to do in it, and it's the same 16 bosses. Go. And I say fucking perfect. A remake that I think doesn't get a lot of attention that I really enjoyed was Metroid Zero Mission.
Okay.
It is not a strict remake in the sense that it follows the exact same map layouts of the original Metroid. So some people get a little iffy on calling it a remake. But I mean, it is canonically a retelling of the same story from Metroid 1. They just had the maps be more fleshed out. And I mean, you know, that's keeping up with like the way the series had come to be at that point, kind of in the vein of like Metroid Fusion and things like that. So to have it be a direct map to map remake would leave the newer generation of players kind of going, wow, this blows. Like, I don't care about the graphical update. This is not great. So they made a smart decision, in my opinion, and elaborated on the things that had made Metroid so enjoyable at that point. So fucking Zero Mission I think is great. And then controversial take. I think one of the best video game remakes of all time is also one of the worst games I've ever played. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
Oh no.
I think as a remake, it is outstanding. Because Chain of Memories, as part of Final Mix, took the original game, which was Game Boy Advance. It was janky as fuck. It had an ambitious card battling system that did not translate well to the hardware at the time. And they scaled it into the new age, put it into the third person, Kingdom Hearts 2 battle system. They slapped that card battle system in there and they kept to it. They made it the same thing. It follows the same plot beats. It then fleshes out with additional content because Nomura can't help himself. All this extra stuff into the storyline and the lore. And my God, as a remake, it is stellar what they pulled off. And that game is an infuriating piece of shit.
Definitely.
I hate Chain of Memories. But I cannot devalue the fact that it is a brilliant remake.
I haven't gone through the remake, but I have played the original GBA up to the very end. And it was very terrible.
Oh, dog. Oh my God. Oh, you should have seen me stream this piece of shit. Oh my God. James waited for the joke of the universe when I suffered my ass through that game. I'm banging my head against the final boss, Marluxia. I'm like, this is dreadful. Please end my misery. Beat him. Credits. When you walk. And I went, oh, thank God. And then it said, congratulations, campaign B unlocked.
No.
And James starts laughing his ass off because he knew and he didn't tell me.
I didn't want to spoil the surprise.
And I said, what the fuck do you mean campaign B? It's like, oh, isn't that like a good thing? Like when you beat Gold and Silver for the first time, like you beat Lance and you go, wow, that was great. And then you get to go to the Kanto region and fight all the original bosses and then have the showdown with Red. Yeah, campaign B. No, here's Riku. He sucks. You don't get to modify his deck, deck building, the fun part of a card battle game.
No, I've never heard of it.
Here's a parry system that sucks, and you have to use it.
Oh, God.
And it's like just a hair shorter than the first campaign. Have fun. Fuck that game. Great, brilliant remake. Fuck that game.
Wow.
So what about
I love the passion.
what about the worst remake that you've played?
Ooh. I gotta chew on that one a second.
All right. Well,
mine is honestly probably HD Collection, although I haven't.
Actually,
played all of
before
it.
Pretty
Well, that's a
much.
remaster,
Yeah.
though.
if I can,
That's true. That's true.
if I
So
can
Rent needs
poke-
to go with his best too.
Yeah, I wanna poke something before we move on from best. Because I want to hear Rents, and also James, I want to hear your opinion of the Demon Souls remake because you love the original so deeply.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's also another
Talk.
secret remake I want to talk about as well.
Oh.
Secret?
Yeah, I'll get into it on my turn. Rent, go ahead.
Yes. We're talking about favorite games, right?
Favorite remake,
Yeah,
yeah.
your favorite remakes.
Favorite remake?
Yeah, just we're not on your favorite games yet. That'll happen.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I mean, essentially, it ties into one of my favorite games, which is Conker's Bad Fur Day. I do
Mm.
enjoy the Live and Reloaded.
Uh-huh.
There is just one thing that I don't like about it. It's just the swearing part. That's just kind of blurred out.
Yeah.
But it's essentially, actually, I mean, because I play the rare replay version, I don't own the original copy for Conker's Bad Fur Day on N64 anymore. But when I do play the rare replay version, I know that the controls are a bit janky.
Yeah.
So with Live and Reloaded, I feel more comfortable since it's on Xbox and you can actually move. And I mean, you could obviously still move on the N64 version when you have pistols. But it's more smoother on the Live and Reloaded version. I do enjoy that about that game. Also the graphical.
Yeah. For those unaware of what Rent was talking about, the swearing, for whatever reason, the Xbox version of Conquer, like the remake, it has more swears censored, which is funny. The N64 version is less censored than the Xbox version. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very bizarre. Do you have another example of like your ideal video game remake or?
Pondering.
Joey King?
Joey King? I do enjoy Joey King, no. I was gonna say Resident Evil 2 remake.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Another great example of like
That
a
is a good
remake that changes just enough to keep it fresh and modern, but still keeping the soul of the original.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, y'all, what the fuck about Shattered Memories?
Oh, I actually own a copy of the game. I have not played it.
Shattered
Not a strict remake,
yeah,
but
that's
a reimagining.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was going to get into a little later in regards to like reimaginings of games as opposed to remakes.
I was going to say I adore Shattered Memories. But I don't I don't even consider it really in that vein because I feel like it's almost like an alternate perspective of of Silent Hill 1 and 2, I guess. Or Silent Hill 1.
Silent Hill 1, yes.
Silent Hill 1, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. That's a good one.
So if Rent doesn't have another example, although feel free to chime in if you think of one. Obviously for me, the Resident Evil 1 remake. Because it's basically the original game, but like fully fleshed out according to Shinji Mikami's vision on newer hardware. And more importantly, the original version is not playable on a Nintendo console, so like there's no backwards compatibility there. And it's like a more fleshed out, classier version. There's still like a couple minor nitpicks that I would have appreciated tweaked in regards to how the game functions. Like I would have appreciated if the Jill and Chris campaigns were more like a Leon A, Claire B, or Claire A, Leon B sort of thing, of like in proper scenarios as opposed to just the same basic campaign but with a different protagonist.
Small changes too, right?
Yeah, and for me that's kind of like my ideal survival horror game, my ideal remake, and everything like that. In answer to your question, Lee, I mostly like the Demon Souls remake. Mostly. Yeah, it's especially if you've never played Demon Souls before, or if you can't play Demon Souls, it is great. It introduces a bunch of minor quality of life improvements that certainly fix certain mild nitpicks about the original that are a little grating, namely in regards to the fact that like you can send items from your inventory to your storage, which you couldn't do in the original, and that's a big deal since Demon's Souls has fucking inventory weight capacity. So if you're carrying too much shit,
oh god,
you just drop whatever you're trying to pick up. And if you leave the level or you die, whatever you left on the ground just despawns, so it's gone forever.
No.
Remake allows you to, at the very least, send stuff back to your bonfire and everything like that. So it's like you don't have to lose shit.
Perfect.
But the reason why I say mostly is I think something feels off in regards to like the atmosphere and the lighting, in regards to like how it definitely looks better because it's 2 generations ahead.
Right.
But like it doesn't have the same atmosphere as the original game. And the lighting feels off in some environments where it's impressive lighting, but like it just isn't quite Demon's Souls, if that makes sense. It's a stupid, silly ass nitpick, but like it's part of the soul and the DNA of the original. For me, also, I feel that the reinterpreted, reimagined music tracks are far too bombastic in the remake, where they went way too hard, like unnecessarily. Yeah. And then the most important thing that I can remember off the top of my head in regards to like why it's kind of inferior to the original is the voice acting.
No.
They got most of the original voice actors back, but they're delivering less than performances that just aren't as good as the original. In some instances, it feels like somebody's reading a script as opposed to like acting.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it's still a solid overall remake, but like for me, as somebody who loves the original and can still play the original, it's not my preferred version of Demon's Souls. As to the this isn't a good remake for me, but this falls into like nebulous territory, but I wanted to bring it up anyway, because I think it's an interesting thing in regards to the idea of like trying to update something for a modern audience. Basically having your cake and eat it too, is Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes.
I was hoping you would talk about this.
Yeah, it is a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid, but for the Nintendo GameCube, and it is done by Silicon Knights, who did Eternal Darkness on the GameCube, and it uses their engine, and it's published by Nintendo. And the idea was
Paragon.
The idea is basically it's the original Metal Gear Solid, but with more Metal Gear Solid 2 gameplay included, which, hi Tori, special guest star Tori on the Gooncast.
Oh yes, Tori.
Yeah.
Go home from work.
It's the problem with the updated mechanics to make it more like a modern game is they're implemented thoughtlessly, and the original environment or mechanics aren't redesigned to reincorporate the new updated mechanics. So it creates a far, far, far easier game. Like to the point where it's almost like comically easy.
Yes.
Because like for example, like the very first boss fight is against Revolver Ocelot. And in the original Metal Gear Solid, you can only move and shoot from its traditional camera perspective, which is this top-down, almost like a Super Nintendo game, right? Of viewpoint. The camera's basically above you. There's a handful of first-person weapons that you use, like a Stinger missile and the sniper rifle and the Nikita missile. But for the most part, you cannot shoot in first person. You can press a button to view stuff in first person, right? But you can't shoot. So the first boss fight against Revolver Ocelot is it's in this room. You cannot go into the center because there's tripwires everywhere filled with C4. So you have to run around the outskirts and try to angle yourself correctly to hit Ocelot. You do have auto aim, so you don't necessarily have to try to like perfectly line up a shot. Like Snake will automatically rotate to the closest enemy. But still, and it's a tricky, solid first boss fight. Metal Gear Solid 2 introduced the idea of being able to actually aim in first person and shoot in first person. And that gets brought over into Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes. So that first boss fight that had like mild, like it was a moderate challenge, is now pitifully easy because you can just stay in one corner and aim in first person and just shoot Ocelot all willy-nilly. So it's like, it's a neat updated mechanic, but doesn't fit with the design of the original game. The original game also did not have lockers that you could hide in, so a bunch of lockers have gotten added in, which makes evading enemies and sneaking around comically easy. And that's just generally the kind of the go-ahead, like the running theme with Twin Snakes, where it kind of just, the intent was there to update it by modern standards, because at that point, I think it had been 6 years since the original Metal Gear Solid, but it just feels thoughtless, and it wasn't like, they didn't want to fuck with the original design, but they wanted to incorporate all this new shit without really worrying about how it all melds together. And it
just
creates
cramming more content and more features into it until it's gonna burst.
Yeah, and it creates this weird experience that it's fine. At least I think it's fine. Twin Snakes is a very contentious title. Some people love it. Some people think it's fine. Some people, i.e. Walter, think it's the biggest piece of shit ever made.
Shout out to a friend of the Gooncast.
Yeah, shout out to Walter. I miss you, buddy. But yeah, it's an interesting spicy humble mare. It's an interesting little piece of game history where it doesn't quite work. It doesn't necessarily trample on the original game's legacy, and it does include, I guess, supposedly as a way to segue, like we were discussing reinterpretations of classic titles. All the cinematics in Twin Snakes were directed by Ryohei Kitamura. He is a Japanese film director, and he was told to direct them in his normal style, despite the fact that he was trying to initially direct them just like the original game. Kat, you're familiar with Ryohei Kitamura's style because he is the director of Godzilla Final Wars.
Yes.
So imagine Metal Gear Solid, like whatever you've seen of MGS,
I love him.
but with insane, schlocky, over-the-top Matrix style fights.
How many people get called cattle in Metal Gear?
None of the script is the same, but you do get to see Snake jump on top of or like backflip over a missile, if I recall correctly. Like it does insane. Like those action sequences in the martial arts type stuff in Final Wars, that's all throughout the cinematics of Twin Snakes. It's bonkers.
Wow.
Fire. Mazer.
Yeah, so on that note, I guess before we get to bad remakes, what about the reinterpretations?
Reinterpretations. Okay.
Yeah, because I'll quickly start it since I did the segue. For me, it's not even necessarily good. I'm just bringing it up as an example. Is Resident Evil 3 because that's another very contentious remake because it is basically the very bare bones basic plot of Resident Evil 3, but like the minutia of the story and almost all of the environments are completely different from the original game, to the point where it very much feels more like a reinterpretation than a strict remake. Like it feels less of a remake. It almost feels like it could have been its own original title. Just it happens to feature the cast of Resident Evil 3 and Nemesis.
Yeah.
And then of course we mentioned Shattered Memories, which I personally adore, and it's my second favorite Silent Hill game of all time. But anyways, what about you? Do you guys have any reinterpretations that you want to discuss, or that you like, that you dislike, whatever?
I feel like Shattered Memories was the one that I had to throw in that arena because I think it dared to do so many things differently that a lot of the fan base are not really high on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who hate that.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Which is
heard
weird
about
to
that.
me because like I dig Shattered Memories so much, specifically because I mean, just the fact that there's no combat mechanic, that like you cannot fight the things that are coming at you.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have to run. Like I'm just like that is so much more interesting to me than being able to have a gun with low ammo where I'm constantly worried about like, oh god, like can I kill this thing with the amount of ammo? It's like I get that that's a huge staple of survival horror, but god, I so much prefer just like you have to figure out a different way around these things, or you just have to bail. Like that's
for
it.
me, what I
Clock Tower 3.
Yeah.
Until you turn into a magical girl, but still, I love Clock Tower 3.
Oh, this is true.
But
this is true.
for me, like one of the things that
what's the one where you're in the asylum with the camera?
Oh, Outlast.
Yes, Outlast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things that I really appreciate about Shattered Memories compared to the rest of the Western Silent Hill games is it's for one, it's the only Western Silent Hill game that doesn't try to be Silent Hill 2, and it has its own unique identity, and it does its own unique thing. What do you know exactly what I mean?
You don't want to combat roll away from your problems like a real man?
I mean, I do, but I don't. There's no Pyramid Head or Pyramid Head stand-in. There's no dark secret twist about the protagonist's history.
There's no nurses, just because everyone recognizes Silent Hill nurses, even though it's like, because they're actively like part of James's psychosis.
Well, it's specifically like, the big titty nurses, because there's nurses in Silent Hill 1 and 2.
We need
and
Booba
3 and 4
because like Alex Shepard was in combat, and therefore he got injured, and therefore he saw nurses, so that's why they're here. It's like, wow, what a stretch. Good job, guys.
Look, I have never had a severe medical like injury. I broke my ankle once, but they put a boot on it and it was fine. But if I had a Silent Hill, it would have big booba zombie nurses.
Yeah.
Look, if they had balls, they would have copied the Silent Hill 4 nurses.
Whoa.
The burping nurses.
They're Fuda nurses? What?
I love the burping nurses.
Yeah, the burping nurses are the best.
Oh, they are the best.
Yeah.
The burping nurses.
And at least for me, and like, I don't think it's ever been confirmed by the developer, but this is my personal headcanon for Shattered Memories. I actually don't even see the game strictly as a remake/reinterpretation. For me, my own personal headcanon for the game is it's an alternate sequel to Silent Hill 1. It's an alternate ending to... It's an ending to the worst ending of the game, where it's revealed that Harry died in the car accident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, nothing has been confirmed by the devs. I don't even necessarily think it's probably their intent, but this is just how I see the game, and I dig that. Like, as just like, we're gonna go off on a completely different direction, and even if it doesn't necessarily tie completely one-to-one to Silent Hill 1, that's kind of fine, because it's somebody's dying thoughts as they're in a car accident. Especially since, spoilers, that's basically the plot of Jacob's Ladder, where it's just this mishmash of insanity and whatnot. So it doesn't necessarily have to make complete sense. Any other spicy reinterpretations that anybody wants to discuss?
I got one. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because it's been so long since I've played it. But Prince of Persia was a really good way to reimagine the franchise.
Oh, interesting.
That was, old school side scroller, 2D, very, very like Nidhogg combat of just like thrust, parry.
Mm-hmm.
I've
And
never
then
played
they're
a
like,
Prince of
yeah, that's
Persia.
cool. Here's a
Ooh.
third-person action game with a time stop mechanic and parkour. Like,
You need to play Sands of Time, Ren. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
One of these
neither
days.
have I actually. So.
You should play Sands of Time as well. It's fantastic. It is the original Sands of Time, like the first entry in that little quadrilogy of sub-series of Prince of Persia, is one of the best written games I have ever played. It is so fucking charming and well done. And it's
Wait, weren't they doing a remake for that game?
They are, which is kind
how
of fitting.
topical.
The remake is going through development hell right now because they showed off the trailer and people were poking fun of how last gen it looked graphically, and Ubisoft has been freaking out. Personally, I don't care about graphics so long as it plays well. That's just my general sentiment.
Yeah.
But that's like its own kettle of fish. But like one of the things that's neat about Sands of Time is the framing device is the prince is telling this story to somebody that we don't know, right? So there's voiceover narration periodically throughout the game. And every single time you die, before, you can, again, rewind time so you can, like, undo mistakes that you make. But every single time you die, the prince, as the narrator, quips, wait, no, that's not right. Let me start again. So it's like every death is basically canonized as, oh, he's fucking up in his retelling of this story. And it's very, very cute.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's very adorable, and I dig that game so much. And Yuri Lowenthal kills it as the priest. It's very young Yuri Lowenthal. I think this is
nice.
2002, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That was PS2, right?
Yeah, PS2, GameCube, original Xbox, and PC. And I know it's still available on PC, but I know you have an Xbox One, Rent, and the original Xbox version is backwards compatible on Xbox One. So you can play it and stream it, and it is charming as fuck.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my name in the hat for reimagining, and now I'm going to sit here and prepare myself for when we talk about worst remakes.
I know exactly the one you're talking about, and it's also one of mine as well. Especially
I have no idea what you mean. My pain is unique.
Any others?
I you know what? I think I really can't think of anything like off the top of my head right now. I think that Shattered Memories is such a good example. I'm just gonna second it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there is something, and I'm sure it's something I've played, but it's really just out of my mental reach. So
yeah.
I'm really happy because while we were talking, I remembered because I was basically trying to think because my experience with a lot of remakes is either I've never experienced the original because it's on very old hardware, like the Resident Evil games. Like a lot of them I never experienced the originals. So therefore the remasters are kind of the only thing I have to reference, and I'm like, yeah, they're great. Maybe they were better before, but this one is good. And also I feel like the Resident Evil remaster or remakes are really genuinely good examples. And then the Silent Hill HD collection, I'm just like, well, I turned that off an hour in because I hated it so much. So my experience has been either I didn't fucking play it because I hated it so much, or I liked it. So, but I found one. I remembered a remake I hate.
I can't wait.
So, but anyway, yeah. Does anybody have any other reinterpretation?
You got one, Ren?
I have none.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to hate. I'm curious, Kat. What's yours?
Okay, so this is actually I streamed the original, which definitely narrows it down a lot because I never stream. But yeah, I forgot about this thing, and it's also weird because on the website the official title of this is the game remastered, and I don't think strictly speaking it is a remaster. I think that because they did a lot of stuff that was brand fucking new in it, so it feels like it's much more in line with a remake. Nancy Drew their first game ever was a game called Secrets Can Kill. This is the Her Interactive point-and-click game. This was the one where James has a clip of me getting shot by a drug dealer at the end.
Yes!
Yes! Yes! So yeah, it was definitely a pretty rough game. I think it was released in 1998, I think, according to this. Yeah, it was 1998. And, you know, like, it's a very old game, and at a certain point, it stopped running on modern PCs, on modern Windows, you know? And Her Interactive also stopped selling the discs. So, currently there are 2 games that are just, like, unplayable unless you, like, really finagle it, which are Secrets Can Kill, the first game, and the TV show one, the next one, which I forget the name of. Not Message in a Haunted Mansion, but yeah, the second one. Oh, Stay Tuned for Danger. So Secrets Can Kill got a remaster for their number 10, I think. It's like, yeah, so it's like, it's considered, or no. It was released in 2010. And this one, like, they basically said, okay, hey, we're gonna remake this because, you know, y'all had some issues with the original game. Most notably that people didn't like the fact that, like, there was a mystery and you had a bunch of suspects to interrogate, right? But then at the end of the game, none of the suspects were the murderer. It was a random third-party drug dealer who was the murderer, who came in the 11th hour, and you were just like, wow, what the fuck? Okay. So they were like, we heard your complaints, and we're going to address that. We're redoing the mystery. The mystery is going to be different. But their solution to and the other thing is that they definitely, like, up-resed a lot of the graphics, and I think they redid a lot of the graphics. And also, they remade the character models, because in the original, they had just, like, animated characters, like 2D animated characters. And in the remake, they did what they usually do, which is have, like, 3D model characters that are animated, but, like, stay in one place and just kind of, like, you know, basically just gesture at you while they're talking. And so they were like, we heard your complaints, we're going to make this an actual mystery. And their solution was to introduce a new character who was, like, an old guy who would be at the diner, who was, like, kind of tasking you with spying on people. Guess who the murderer is now?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Me?
Yeah, they introduced a new character specifically to be the murderer, which is just like, hey guys, that's not how you redo a mystery.
Yeah, that's
if you
missing the point here.
Exactly. If you wanted to make it compelling and make it not that, like, oh, the real villain shows up randomly at the very last scene, then you need to actually make it so that, like, it's just one of the 3 people that you thought it might have been. Like, I know it's weird because they're high school students, but that's not, like, in that case, maybe age everybody up. Maybe make, like, 4 characters who are, like, college students or something.
Mm-hmm.
She's at a college now, so they're all, like, 21 years old, and yeah, they murdered somebody. Or one of them murdered somebody. But you don't just be like, here's a random adult. He's not suspicious at all. And then it's like, cool, now I'm gonna go through the motions of figuring out dirt on all of these other people, only for it to be the new character you introduced solely for the purpose of making him the murderer.
Hi there, so how long have you been evil?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's my example of, and I've played this game a couple of times. You know, and I definitely played it all the way through, so I feel like I can, like, more definitively say this was a major miss as a remake.
Fucking sounds like it.
Yeah. I will probably stream it eventually.
Yes.
Womp womp.
just so y'all can see, and y'all can see the extremely obvious bad guy.
I'm imagining he's got, like, the twirly mustache, and he's, like, waxing it to a fine point, going, yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Oh my god. Oh, and hilariously, actually, they don't even have him in the, like, character bios section of the game.
Oh.
for the remaster.
That's
Just
hilarious.
they're just like, oh, ignore him. Like, yes, he's a new character, but don't worry about it. It's like, huh, okay, sure. Oh
Let's
man.
see. Secrets can kill remastered. Yeah, here we go.
Yep. Yeah, and I genuinely I don't know why it's called remastered unless that seems like another blurred line, honestly, because they literally like added new characters and changed a lot of the script is 1-to-1 from the original, but like they had to reanimate a bunch of 3D characters and redo a bunch of sets, so it's just kind of like I don't know what's going on here.
I've noticed that the blurred line, like I mentioned at the start of the cast, is kind of like outside of even just like on an individual like end user gamer level, it can be still blurry for devs. Like I was looking into it before the start of the cast, and apparently the developers of the Crash Insane trilogy call it a quote unquote remastered plus because they use the original level geometry code. And like, I don't care if you use the original level geometry. This is still a remake. These are entirely new assets built from the ground up. This is not the original engine. This is not the original art design. This is not the original graphics. This is not the original music. This is not the original voice acting, etc., etc., etc. Like it's a remake. It's a trilogy of remakes. It's the same thing with like the Spyro Reignited collection. Those are remakes.
Yes.
They're not remasters. It's not.
Yes.
Same thing with Medieval on it can still be a 1-to-1 remake where it is functionally the same game just on newer hardware.
Yeah.
But it's not the original assets. You know?
Yeah. I feel like if you are wholesale making original like remaking assets, that is officially outside of a remaster territory.
Yeah.
If you're just taking textures and bumping them up to, like 1024 or whatever from like 256, like that's fine. Then you could say I'm not discrediting that it's not work. Like it is hard work, but it's not the level of work of we literally rebuilt the entire level as like, all new brand new 3D models and blah blah blah. Yeah. Anyway,
so
give me some more spicy
Lee,
ones.
what is your least favorite remake, and why is it Final Fantasy VII?
Well, to the surprise of no one, yeah, fuck Nomura. I am so angry at Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh.
It's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre level of anger, but how can something like that be so inappropriately advertised?
Yeah, because it's not a fucking remake.
It's not a remake. It is dead ass a sequel.
Yeah.
And
no spoilers, by the way.
Look, I've given out about this thing a few times on the podcast already, so I'm not gonna retread all of my ground with it. But at the end of the day, it is advertised as a remake in the fucking title, and it is not a remake. When they first advertised, when they first showed the stinger, the first commercial, they show the iconic shot of the train pulling into the power station. They show Cloud and Barrett walking through the crowd, and it says Final Fantasy VII Remake. They put the fucking word on the advertisement.
They put the word in the fucking title.
And you give me time ghosts? You give me the first 7 or 8 hour section of the game stretched mercilessly out into like, fuck it, how many hours is that playthrough?
40 to 50.
Fuck it, 40? Yeah. Oh my god.
You love time ghosts.
Fuck off. And don't get me started on Sephiroth. And you can't take a portion of your source material and turn it into this fever dream fan fiction
with
slap
copious
the
fan
word
service
remake on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it fails on a fundamental level.
It is straight up false advertisement. I'm sorry.
And the fact that a fair
I'm not trying to
amount...
clutch my pearls over it.
No,
or
it
anything.
is 100%.
Jeez.
It is 100% false advertising. I think even its
Yes.
defenders can agree that it's fucking false advertising.
Yes, absolutely.
I never played it.
Oh well, again,
It handles pretty damn good. I like the combat system.
Oh, I don't.
I dug it actually. I dug the combat system. It's just the pacing is abysmal.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's trying to masquerade as a remake that truly just makes it dreadful. Like,
yeah. It's
visually stunning.
Visually it's stunning.
Soundtrack, unbelievable soundtrack.
Some of the character glow-ups are strong. Some of the characters were thrown into the dumpster.
Fantastic.
No. My worst is also Final Fantasy VII Remake, and like a lot of it, what Lee said is my sentiments as well. Except for I don't like the combat personally. I think it's way too floaty and in some cases boring. But like one of my biggest complaints about it is just, as Lee briefly touched upon, the way Sephiroth is handled.
Oh, God.
Because in the original game, Sephiroth is treated basically as the shark from Jaws. The first chunk of the game, which is what this is remaking, there's references to Sephiroth, but you do not see the man. And you just hear characters discuss him. You have no idea that he is even going to be the main antagonist of the game during this chunk. And then you get to the end of this chunk, and you guys are like caught in the security prison, and all of a sudden your cells open up, and like there's like ominous music playing, and you start like making your way out of the building, and you start finding dead bodies everywhere, and it's like, what the hell is going on? And then you get to the president's office, and there he is, dead, impaled with Sephiroth's sword. And it's like, what the fuck is happening? And this is after you do eventually escape the city. You still don't even know what the fuck Sephiroth is, right? And you get this little flashback, which kind of
you just
shows
know you don't
him,
want to fuck with him.
which shows him as like, it's from Cloud's perspective from when he's a rookie, and he's basically like super god, effectively one-shotting all sorts of shit. And you get to this swamp area, and there's this super fucking difficult enemy there that can and will one-shot you at this point in the game, unless you've like gone out of your way to fucking grind like whoa and super uber prepare. But the idea is supposed to be, you're supposed to find a chocobo, which will allow you to traverse the swamp without getting attacked by the monster. And when you get to the other side of the swamp, it cuts to an IGC, and you find another of that monster dead and impaled on a fucking stalactite, implying that Sephiroth effortlessly killed this fucking thing. Right? And it's terrifying. It's setting this guy up to be super fucking menacing. Now, for the remake, the devs acknowledged that the original game treated him like the shark from Jaws. Mm-hmm. But they go, oh, well, that wouldn't work now because people know who Sephiroth is. And it's like, my dudes, the whole point of a remake is to like potentially get in a new audience. So like anybody who's never played FF7 before has no idea who the fuck Sephiroth is. They probably know about him through pop culture, or
through
like
One-Winged Angel being a big,
through Smash Bros, like through Osmosis and all that other stuff.
Kingdom Hearts.
But they don't know him. They don't know why he's such a big deal. So the way the remake handles him is basically Pyramid Head from Silent Hill Homecoming turned up to 11. It is nothing but gratuitous fan service where he just pops up constantly and is like winking and nudging the cameras like, hey guys, I'm Sephiroth. Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna be cryptic and say all this weird shit. It's the Darth Vader showing up in Rogue One. I know what that is. I clapped because it was familiar moment. And it just is so offensively handled. On top of like the fact that, again, it is not a remake, it is a fucking meta sequel to Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. It is so offensively handled in just trying to squeeze out fan service of like, oh god, we know you want to see Sephiroth, so here's Sephiroth nonstop. constantly, enjoying,
Well,
and it sucks any mystery and fear that the villain may fucking have.
Well, and I feel like some of the efforts that they made to give us more of that character presence, because I feel like that's what it was. They're like, okay, we know Sephiroth is this established thing. Let's give him to you. They tried to do that with a lot of other characters, and I think across the board, for the most part, big fucking asterisk, it was done successfully so. You know, there's a lot of things they did right. The boss fight with Reno in the church. Reno in the game is a very, very simple boss. He has the stun baton hit, he's got like a ranged attack, and then he puts pyramid on one of your characters. In this, he's a 3-stage boss fight with fucking like laser orbs and shit. And I'm like, yo, let's go. Rude gets his own solo boss fight with like cute little gimmicks put in of he won't hurt Tifa because he has a crush on her. It's like, this is great. These little fleshed out moments of like, we're going to take a boss fight that was too simple back then and expand it into something more cool. But you don't need to change the narrative fabric of the already established story.
Yeah.
If they wanted to stick to this idea of keeping it as like a multi-episode installment thing, you can. And here's how. 3 episodes, acts 1, 2, and 3. First one, final boss is Rufus. Second one, final boss is Jenova. Third, Sephiroth. Cut and fucking print.
Yeah. You build up to him and still keep him as a menacing antagonist. Like, it's the shark from Jaws tactic of less is more still works in modern day because it's fucking building something up to be terrifying.
I gave out about it in the fucking top antagonist lists, and I'll do it again. Say what you will. Ansem in Kingdom Hearts 1 is the shit.
Yeah.
You just get little bits of lore about him sprinkled out, and you're like, yo, this Ansem dude sounds like a big deal. And then, oh, fuck, he's the final boss? What? And he just pops up in the last, like, hour of storyline and kicks the shit out of you.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
I'm so angry at this fucking game.
So what is your least favorite remake, Ren?
Please say Final Fantasy VII so I could just start up again.
Okay, I'm gonna have you start up again. No, I've never played the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Oh,
I
lucky.
own it. I haven't thought about actually playing it. I don't think I ever will.
Good.
Not because of what you guys just said. I just don't feel like I would ever play the remake. I haven't really played too many remakes. But it's just me. I just found Tomb Raider 2013 very easy, even on the highest difficulty. I just did not like that.
And that also ties into, I guess, the reinterpretation reboot stuff, but still, you know, it's a fair argument.
That's true.
Even though I went through, I even did my own challenge run with
you did.
no handguns, no extra
yeah,
stuff.
Rent went bow only.
Weapons. Yeah. If there was like scripted events where, you know, you obviously had to use the gun, but everything else was just bow and arrow melee weapon.
Nice.
I just found it relatively way too easy. And I even did the same thing with Rise, and I did somewhat struggle on that one a little bit at the end. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I never did go back to completing it just because I kind of gave up on it because of the same thing. It was a little bit too easy for me. Yeah.
I guess one more other shitty remake I can kind of briefly talk about, or at least disappointing remake, is Turtles in Time Reshelled, which is the oft-forgotten about...
hands-on with that one.
Yeah, it was a... for those unaware, Konami made a banger arcade beat-em-up of TMNT in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a banger. They then brought it to the Super Nintendo, and even though it lost 4-player co-op, they took the time to make it even more of a banger. And then, of course, as rights go, Konami lost the rights to the TMNT franchise, and they bounced around. They eventually went over to Ubisoft, and somehow Ubisoft was able to get the green light to remake Turtles in Time as a downloadable game for Xbox Live and PSN. I don't know if there was a PC version. It uses this 2.5D art style that isn't very good. It's serviceable looking, but it's not. It loses a lot of that charm. and they based it upon the arcade version of the game, which, as I mentioned, the Super Nintendo version is kind of the superior version with its level design and bosses. Like, sure, it lacks the 4-player co-op, but it is the superior product, and just overall it feels like a soulless, passionless, uglier version of a banger of a game. And it's delisted now, so nobody gets to fucking play it ever, unless you fucking emulate it. You can't do it unless you already own it, because licensed games are hell. So why do you guys think there's this nebulous misinterpretation or why is there this confusion on what constitutes as a remake versus a remaster versus a reinterpretation versus a reboot versus all sorts of fun shit?
I would say maybe the way things are packaged and advertised.
I was just about to say my answer is marketing.
Yeah, marketing.
Marketing
Fantasy VII Remake.
I think that companies are wanting to hit the buzzwords that they know are going to generate the most attention.
Mm-hmm.
Remaster is probably shown to get a lot less traction than remake.
Okay.
Because remake, the phrasing of it kind of evokes this certain special feeling, like it hits the nostalgia really well.
Sure.
Remake is like, oh, it's not just gonna be that thing from years ago that I used to really like. It's gonna be like, completely from the ground up, the new hotness again.
Yeah, and to that point, I feel like remaster on the flip side of that coin, it's like, this is exactly the game you know and love.
Mm-hmm.
No extra bells and whistles. This is just, hey, we're making it prettier and able to run on the new machine. And that's, I feel like, the even if they do say like, oh, we've added a bunch of things, I feel like there has been so much like bad taste in people's mouths over remakes that do that kind of thing, where they update in bad faith, or they update just to update, just to modernize, and it loses the like with Tomb Raider making things too easy, or with the one James mentioned earlier, where it's just like, oh, because of the new
Metal Gear
mechanics. Yeah, Metal Gear, it's like the new mechanics just trivialize everything about the game. Like all of the challenge is just excised from it. I feel like for those reasons, maybe people say like remaster's like the safe one to say.
That's a good
like
way
the
to look at it.
Spicy one, but also like, ooh, you're getting more bang for your buck, so pay us more money.
That's a really good way to put it. Like, a remaster is gonna come across to some people as like, well, why would I want to buy that? I've already got it. Where like my favorites have all been, my favorite games have all been lucky enough to get remasters.
Beautiful.
Shadow of the Colossus, StarCraft, Kingdom Hearts 2 got Final Mix. Like, they've all gotten these updates that I happily would or have throw money at just to get the same game again.
Whereas Silent Hill 1.
Basically.
Yeah, whereas remakes, I start off with this bit of like apprehension.
Yes.
And I've already kind of created some, to be fair, like, criticism about it. Which, maybe I'm not their target audience because I'm a filthy casual. But I'm much more likely to jump at a remaster than a remake.
I think part of the issue, too, potentially stems from the film industry and how less... It makes basically, like, video games more difficult to quantify in terms of like a remake, because the fact that like when a film is remade, it's 100% clear cut, right? It's like different cast, usually a different crew. I think there's only a handful of instances where a film is remade and it retains the same crew or maybe even the same cast. I can only think of like a couple examples off the top of my head, right? And in most instances, outside of Psycho and maybe one or two other instances, a film remake generally isn't like a direct one-to-one remake, right? Where and as we've always seen throughout the history of this medium of video games, video games are constantly compared to cinema. Cinema is been around longer, and it's considered like a form of art, and there's this gold standard with cinema. Whereas video games are seen as like lesser tier to an extent, and a lot of people still think it's just a child's
lower
thing,
form of
art. You have people who even refuse to acknowledge that games can be art. You have parents who lose their shit whenever there is a violent video game, because how dare there be something violent for a kid?
How can that be entertaining?
Yeah. So
shut up. I'm trying to watch Goodfellas.
Yeah. I think part of that, like, cultural zeitgeist, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like, in terms of cinema, has seeped into video games, that especially when you see like a remake that is a 1-to-1 remake of the original game, like Shadow of the Colossus on PS4, or Demon's Souls on PS5, that people take a look at it and go, oh, it's a remaster, as opposed to a remake, because it's built from the ground up for new hardware, which makes it a remake. It has new assets. Even if it uses the original source code, and like, if it has new assets, like, it's a remake. Sorry. But like, that's kind of like how I see it. Is just, I think there's just this general misconception stemming from outside things, because we as a society are not necessarily strictly used to direct 1-to-1 remakes, and video games are a comparatively new media that's still kind of struggling to find acceptance, especially since everybody keeps blaming video games for all the problems in the world.
Yeah, which sucks, because it's like, it's been long enough. You would think that
it's been long enough, but you still get idiots like this is years and years ago, where, you know, because again, whenever there's a national tragedy, they try to link it to a video game, and I still distinctly remember there was one mass shooting that the news media tried to equate and blame on Dark Souls 2. Which is like, what?
Okay.
I mean, Dark Souls 2 has made people want to commit homicide, I'm sure.
Sure. But like, they were like, again, personally, like, to go semi off topic, I'm of the mindset that I do not believe media influences one's actions, and if they do, that says more about the individual as opposed to the media that they consumed, or the people who created that media in general. But at the very least, like, when somebody tries to blame Doom for something, I can maybe kind of see where they're coming from, because it's a game about shooting stuff. But when it's something like Dark Souls 2, as swords and sorcery and fighting skeletons, I'm like, bro, what?
Gonna wake up and say Buenos dias, fuckboy.
Basically, Buenos dias, fuckboy. But yeah, I think it's just our society, just, we haven't accepted, and it's especially, like, again, film remasters, like, it's very clear cut, like, it's just on Blu-ray as opposed to widescreen 4K,
Criterion Collection,
Criterion Collection, all sorts of fun stuff, you know, restored from the original negative. Whereas video games, it's trickier.
Well, the curious thing with film remakes, that I chatted very briefly with Saber about this before we started. The curious thing here is that I find with video game remakes, the more faithful you are to the source material, down to the meticulous details, and not changing the fabric of it, the better it is. Film remakes need to be willing to take chances. In my opinion, like, film remakes to me need to keep the spirit of the original, but I think are almost in a way encouraged to do something different or daring. Okay. So like, The Thing, John Carpenter, is a remake of Thing from Another World from the 50s. But even though the major plot beats are the same, the setting is the same, the story is the same, Carpenter went, okay, fuck it, we're not gonna we're gonna really flex the creature effects on this thing and make it this, you know, now even still groundbreaking fucking visual feast.
Yeah, absolutely.
like even the weird like westernization of certain remakes. Like there was the big wave of things for a while, especially in horror, where it's like westernizing Eastern horror. So we had The Ring, Grudge, Dark Water, Pulse, all these movies. And I think those kind of got clumped into this viewpoint of like, oh, these are just like cheap money grabs from, for Western audiences. But at the same time, I think one of the greatest remakes / reimaginings of all time is the original Magnificent Seven, which is a remake of Seven Samurai. So it's willing to throw the dice and do something totally different. Like, you know how they're like when you're talking about media, you can make a different differentiation between like best and favorite. Like, oh, this game is my favorite of all time, but like it's nowhere near the best ever made. Seven Samurai, I think, might be the best film ever made. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. And then for them to go, hey, let's do the exact same film, almost beat for beat, but it's cowboys. You're gonna go, oh, that's a train wreck waiting to happen. No, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It works.
It's fucking great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Or a reimagining that just wants to go balls to the wall, like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Or one of the other classic examples that nobody really ever thinks about in regards to remakes, Scarface. You have the original movie, which is a 1930s, typical 1930s gangster film about, I believe, the Italian mafia. And then you have a 1980s remake that sets it in modern day and is instead about like Cuban mobsters in Florida, and it completely like reimagines the general setting, but still keeps the same basic themes and the same basic plot beats and ending and everything like that about organized crime.
I didn't realize that was a remake.
Yeah, a lot of people don't necessarily think of Scarface as a remake, and same thing with The Thing sometimes. So like usually when people go The Thing remake, they think the 2011 film, because it's a prequel remake where it's the same fucking movie, but it's basically a prequel to the Carpenter film. But like the Carpenter film is a remake of a 1950s horror movie, which in turn is based off of a 1930s novella. It's fun.
It's like, I think like The Evil Dead. I remember seeing the remake, but I've never seen the original.
And that also falls into that weird nebulous category where it's a remake, but it's simultaneously set in the same canon. So it's it's like a remakeable, as the kids like to call it.
Wasn't that
Fuck
the
those
Scream?
kids.
The Scream name
Scream,
for it
yeah.
or whatever? Yeah.
The Scream used remakeable. I want to say that I've heard the term remakeable on Half in the Bag years ago. Because I know they also called like one thing a sequel reboot, a C-boot. Like they're like just pulling shit out of their asses. So it's entirely possible they coined it first, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only heard that term through Scream 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
I
don't know.
Is probably just ripping on the cultural terms or lack thereof for that kind of movie.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
So I guess I got two questions for the lot of us. What video game remake are you looking forward to the most, if any? And then what video game do you want to see remade or remastered / ported?
I've got mine ready to lock and load. So
Me too.
I'm a fire from the hip here.
I have the first question ready. I need to think about the next one. But go off, Lee.
Okay, remake I'm looking forward to, fucking System Shock.
Ooh.
Hey.
Ooh.
That comes out in a couple weeks.
I think that's got the potential to slap.
I backed that on Kickstarter 8 years ago.
I'm not getting my hopes up, but it kind of has that effect of like, how we were talking about the way we wished Sephiroth was handled, like a whole new generation of gamers who get to witness Sephiroth. A whole new generation of gamers who get to fuck with Shodan.
Yeah, GLaDOS' more menacing older sister.
showed in the original saucy AI. Oh my god, I love her. I
It's gonna be
cannot
great.
wait for a whole new generation of people to be tormented by her.
It's gonna be
So
great.
System
Yeah.
Shock is the one I'm looking forward to. A video game I would want to be remade. Okay. I am a big fan of the era of early first-person shooters, of like the the great id era,
Yeah.
Quake, Doom 2, Hell on Earth. I want a
Ooh.
fucking remake of
Ooh.
Hexen.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh.
Hexen was a first-person shooter that took place in like a fantasy medieval realm. It was a first-person shooter with classes. It had an RPG kind of system to it, where you could be the warrior, the cleric, or the mage, and they all had different weapons. They all had different stats and items they were able to utilize to like play with the environment. It is a very it's a very janky playthrough in that it was over reliant on like gathering keys for hidden doors. And
Yes,
like
As was
it's
the style at the time.
very
Mhm.
very frustrating. Like I remember I got really frustrated first playing Hexen as a kid when like I picked up a key that was like shaped like a golden dragon or some shit, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and it said 1 of 8 found, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh Christ. And I would have given up on it if like the weapons weren't so fucking cool. Like I always played cleric. If I'm
Mhm.
playing an RPG and there's like the holy warrior,
Yeah.
I'm always going that. And
Hell yeah, dude.
cleric's ultimate weapon is a scepter that releases the screaming souls of the damned, and they fly
Oh.
around the level screeching and swooping like the bats in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh my god.
And this is a fucking shooter from like 95. I want that shit remade. That would be dope.
Hell yeah.
The world needs more Hexen.
There you go.
This
That's
is the
a good
first
one.
I've heard of it.
Oh, Hexen. Yeah, I can't recommend it, honestly, because again, like that, woof, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of keys you gotta gather, my boy. But
Yes. And yeah, and that's so that's one of the things where it's like, and I think James has touched on this before. And especially when we talk about like Hollywood remaking movies. And I don't think we've talked about it too much with games, but I think it falls under the same umbrella where it's like, if you have a game that, had a lot of really good ideas, but also a lot of jank, ooh, it'd be great to just like be like, yeah, let's redo that. Let's take those good ideas and make the rest of it good too.
exactly.
That would be
Mhm.
cool. Yeah,
Taking something that has potential.
Mhm.
It's if it's a good piece of coal, and you just got to apply enough heat and pressure to make it a diamond.
Yes.
There you go.
Oof,
Or,
beautiful.
why not remake Corpse Party for the 8th time?
There we go. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry. How rude of me. Reimagine Corpse Party
Mhm.
for
Butter
the
up
8th
that
fucking
pooper.
time.
Butter up that pooper indeed, Rentsy.
Fuck Makoto K-Dwan. I hate him. I hope he's listening.
Okay, so to nobody's surprise, the remake I am most excited for is the somewhat recently announced remake for Riven, the sequel
Oh,
to
hell yeah.
Myst.
Yeah,
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah. They announced it, I think, about a year after the Myst remake came out, and I think, and don't quote me on this because I actually haven't done any research on it. This might be the first Riven remake. I don't actually know because I know Myst has gotten ported a shit ton, but I don't know how many ports Riven has gotten at all, if any. So from a cursory glance at their wiki, it does not look like it. Oh, yeah, the most recent update on the wiki is just, hey, there's a planned remake and that was announced in 2022. So yeah, that's my excitement. And then as far as like a game I would love to see remade? That's a really tough one because like I feel like I have franchises where I'm like I want to go back to that franchise. Like I was trying to think of like the Adventure Company used to be it was a game company that used to make adventure games. Specifically, they were making a lot of Sherlock Holmes games.
Mm-hmm.
And like they died as a company, and so we're never gonna see another Adventure Company game again. But I wish we had more Hercule Poirot games. I feel like there's like there's
untapped, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so much potential there, and it's just like I feel like they're not as easy as the Sherlock Holmes games, perhaps, because Holmes and his stories are public domain. And I don't know about Agatha Christie stuff. I don't think she is, but regardless to say, I want that.
I dig it.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a really cool market to hit more.
Yeah. I think getting, and maybe even digging into some of the point and clicks that I really like, getting into just like, I don't know, just making them for new hardware so that I can play them without having to emulate or something.
Well, and the timing for this is right too, because the film adaptations have been received very well.
Yes.
Orient Express and Nile.
Absolutely.
And then Glass Onion is fucking huge, and Knives Out, and it's a good time for hitting that gaming market because a lot of film attention's on it and being well received. So
yeah, hell yeah.
What about you, Rentsy?
What about the Rent Man?
Yeah, what
about the Rent Man? The most generic answer for the remake that I'm looking forward to, which is the Green Jacket Man Adventures of Silent Hill 2.
Oh.
I'm really curious to see how that turns out.
That's exactly why. Like I'm anticipating it, but I'm also like not putting my hopes up that it would be like a really good.
Yeah.
But still, I'm gonna give it a shot and see what happens with that. I'm hoping I could get over the combat rolls because I wasn't a big fan of it in Homecoming from what I played.
You love combat rolling.
Just combat roll
away
from the combat rolls.
Yeah.
I would like to
out combat roll the nightmares.
Yeah.
They're gonna just come back. So, question number 2. I would love to see SMT4 ported over to modern consoles.
Yeah.
I would also add Apocalypse as well in there. I mean, it's a sequel in a way, right? Yeah, so I would love to see that ported over at least to more modern consoles. I do own the game on 3DS. However, I can't find it.
Womp, womp. Yeah, I mean,
I can't find it.
I would love to see the entire Shin Megami Tensei franchise ported over to modern hardware, or even localized, for example.
Yeah, especially with like Persona 1 and 2 as well.
Oh yeah. As for me, outside of System Shock, which I mentioned I backed on Kickstarter, my most anticipated video game remake comes with a giant fucking asterisk. And the reason for this is because it was announced way too early. I might have mentioned this on the podcast before. I know I've mentioned it on a stream before, but like, I don't like the trend of announcing a game like right as it enters pre-production or like the planning stages. Like, if your game is not coming out within 6 to 12 months, maybe 18 months at the earliest, like from your announcement date, I don't really want to hear about it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like tired of
Kingdom
this.
Hearts 3.
Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 7, fucking Duke Nukem Forever, fucking Last Guardian. Like, I don't care about this endless circle jerk of just, we announce the game and then it comes out like 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, right?
Yeah. So
this has a giant asterisk because of it, because it's technically probably not going to be coming out until 2024 or 2025, and I think it was announced in like 2022. And that is the remakes of Max Payne and Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne.
Nice.
This is news to me.
Yeah. This, it's
hot off the press right here on the Gooncast.
They're being remade by Remedy.
Whoa.
So like it's the original devs, and Sam Lake is still involved. As far as I know, they're bringing back James McCaffrey to voice Max again. I love Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. I'm actually currently going through the original Max Payne on my channel, and I'm probably going to immediately follow that up with 2 and then 3. I love the entire trilogy. So to see the original 2 games updated with like modern mechanics is potentially really exciting. Especially since Remedy is kind of a banger of a dev. I've always really loved their work ever since the original Max Payne, so this could be fairly exciting. In terms of something I would love to see remade or ported or remastered, I mean, I briefly mentioned Shin Megami Tensei, and if I was going to pick one of those, it would be Strange Journeys, since that's my favorite Shin Megami Tensei game. And then there's the obvious answers, of course, that constantly get spouted around throughout the survival horror circuit of, like, you know, bringing Silent Hill 1 to modern hardware, Dino Crisis, Haunting Ground, Rule of Rose, Clock Tower, all that fun shit. But I gotta... Parasite Eve. But I gotta go with my favorite game of all time, which is Illusion of Gaia, which is trapped on fucking old hardware. It's only available on the Super Nintendo, so unless you have a cartridge, your only way to play the game, it's because, again, it's never been ported to even Virtual Console, right?
Wow.
So I would settle for a bare bones collection, or even a bare bones port of Illusion of Gaia, and it's prequel Soul Blazer and its sequel to Enigma, or even if it's just a straight standard, like, hey, we're just throwing the original game up on Steam, give us $5. I'll settle for that. I just, there you go. I just want to see that fucking thing available on modern hardware, you know? Like, just, I don't want to have to emulate it or bust out my Super Nintendo. Like, there's constant other stuff, of course, like, that I constantly see getting spouted out. Like, people want to see, like, Metal Gear Solid 1 remade again, or Metal Gear Solid 3 remade, and I'm like, if you're... Code Veronica is a great example. I would love to see Code Veronica remade. If you're going to remake a Metal Gear game, I would remake Metal Gear 1 or Metal Gear 2, like the original 1980s games that barely anybody's fucking played. Those are, like, highest possible to remake.
Please remake fucking Code Veronica.
Like, there's all sorts of...
Alexia would look so hot.
She really would. Steve could get a massive glow up like Carlos, because, I mean,
fuck
like...
Steve.
Look, Steve's trash, but Carlos was also kind of trash in the original game, and Carlos got a fucking massive glow up, dude, in RE3 remake.
I just want to hear the incest giggler laugh again.
Or, you know, fucking incest giggler.
Good family name.
Yeah. It's delightful cheese. So before we, like, fully, completely wrap up on the topic, let's discuss, since 3 of the 4 of us have kind of played it, at least briefly, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and I do want to disclose the fact that I am part of the Capcom Creators Program, and I received a free copy of this game for PlayStation 5. I did buy it myself as well, because I didn't know if I was going to get myself a free code. And also, Jer, God bless him, a friend of the Gooncast, also sent me the PC version. And I've probably sunk about 90 or so hours into this game since it came out, between the PS4 version, PS5 version, and Mercenaries mode. And I know, Lee, I did give you a copy, and you haven't touched it just yet, and you did mention that you will play it, and that it's okay if we discuss spoilers and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on RE4 Remake, and did you play the original and all that fun stuff? So I guess we can start with our special guest, Rentsy. What did you think of RE4 Remake?
Yeah.
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 It needed more Steve. No, actually, I did enjoy a few sections of it. I did not like spoilers, the Ashley sections
Yes.
where you
Oh.
cannot have her hide anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really I really missed that from the original.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in full agreement there. I think Ashley was downgrade. Like her, I suppose narratively her character's maybe stronger, kind of, sort of, maybe, but like mechanically, it creates a far more frustrating experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've complained at length to you, James, about this because I am somebody who has never. I've not played Resident Evil 4, the original, ever. So the remake was my first experience with the story, and I mostly dug like what was happening, but I told James and I told a bunch of other people that if the core concept of Ashley's design philosophy was not to make me absolutely fucking hate her, then they utterly failed. Because I just hated her. And
she's really annoying in the remake.
I hated every section with her because I was just constantly like literally I died. I didn't die. I barely died at all in the like Leon only sections. I died so many times in the sections with her, and most of the time it was because she got grabbed by an enemy and carted away while I was getting overwhelmed, or she got grabbed and I accidentally shot her in the face, or she got hit by fire like twice in a row and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get her up in between the hits. It was a bunch of like bullshit that was just arbitrary, like, nope, your game's over now. It wasn't that I had it, because there are other games that have had like, oh, you have to rescue your buddy. But if it's done right, it's usually like you get plenty of advance warning before the game just says, okay, you didn't save your buddy, you're done.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like there's so many instances where it can just get fucked up, and you're just like, I actually mild spoilers for Endgame, but there was the one like blue letter quest, the one vendor mission where you have to go kill one of the big shambly guys that like
regenerators.
Yeah, a regenerator, one of the really strong ones in the basement. And I missed the locker that I was supposed to shove Ashley into. So I fucking killed that guy with her in tow, and it sucked ass.
I can only imagine.
I died literally 6 times because she would get knocked down by one of its spike blasts, and then I couldn't get anywhere near it, and it would spike blast again and kill her, and I was just like, shit.
That's one of the reasons why I haven't really gone back to the game either. It's just I'm dreading the Ashley section, so I'll get to like a bit before that, and then I just stop playing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was really digging the first like 5 chapters, I think, when it's just you solo. That was fun. I liked it. And then I picked up Ashley. Oh, also, I will say that there is a buddy AI in the game that is actually competent.
Luis.
Yeah, Luis. And he is in one chapter as like your one buddy for that chapter. Chapter 11. And I was just like, as soon as we started like, doing the chapter, I texted James. I was like, okay, I really like Luis. And then like an hour later, I was just like, Luis, no. But I will say that the way he was handled actually made me kind of like eager for a Resident Evil 5 remake. Because like, I know that I've played it countless times with James in co-op, and it's a fucking blast in co-op. But apparently, and I've only mildly experienced firsthand, the fucking buddy AI in Resident Evil 5 sucks ass.
It's fucking terrible.
It's awful. But if you have Sheva be as competent as Louise was, fucking sold.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfection.
Yes. Like I'm good. Like let's do it. Let's roll. And I miss Sheva. I thought she was a great character.
No, she's great.
I would love to have her in another in a mainline Resident Evil game.
And if we get an RE5 remake, that means we get a remade version of Wesker's Boss Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Which fucking yeah.
Complete global saturation.
Yes. Like I'm
saturate these
so
nuts.
ready. I think that would be pretty cool.
So for me,
but yeah, James.
Yeah, I've spent Resident Evil 4 is like easily the original. One of my top 5 Resident Evil games of all time. Sure, there are elements of it that are a little dated, mechanically and maybe even thematically or whatnot. Like you can't move and shoot, but like one of the things about the original Resident Evil 4 is the game is designed around that. So, like, it doesn't feel... Even though there's, like, an overwhelming amount of enemies, right? The game does not feel unfair. Because enemies are a bit... They're more aggressive than your standard, like, Resident Evil zombies. And, like, it's kind of like how Resident Evil 5, because, like, again, the game is mostly designed around the fact that you cannot move and shoot, right? So it's like, it doesn't feel completely bullshit when you get hit. It's maybe your situational awareness wasn't at, like, the top game or whatever, but, like, enemies aren't super aggressive. And I feel as though with Remake 4, they kind of fucked with it a little too much, where they've done this thing where enemies are super fucking far more aggressive than they've ever been, because you can move and shoot simultaneously. But they've also made it, they feel a little spongier than they did in the original, where like it feels like they take more damage before they go down. Yeah. And they also fucked with the bullet economy, so I feel like I'm constantly struggling for ammo.
I noticed that too.
Yeah. And since, like, in OG RE4, there's no knife durability, so at the very least, if you run out of ammo, you always have that old reliable knife. It might not be the best, but you can conserve ammo effectively by knocking an enemy down and then slashing them to death, or
and
any
frankly,
of that stuff.
To me feels more like the point.
Yes.
As opposed to, like, it's not, to me, the Resident Evil games aren't real, at least since 2, they don't really feel like they're supposed to be survival horror. It's not like I'm supposed to be counting bullets and, like, scrounging by. It's like,
they definitely have a tendency of going into action schlock.
Yes, exactly. And I'm fine with that as long as you don't try to couple the two, where you're like, ooh, you gotta scrounge for bullets, but also, here's an enemy that takes 8,000 bullets to kill.
Yeah, but it's a delicate balance, because like even in the like say the older Resident Evil games, right, where like it is more you have to conserve your ammo. Ideally, you should be maybe running past enemies, at least until you're more familiar with stuff. The enemy, like, there's not an overwhelming amount of enemies, and there's still just enough ammo for you to skirt by. Whereas in RE4 Remake, I always felt as if I was constantly underprepared for every situation, through no fault of my own. Like, there was even one instance, too, where it was like this elevator fight, which, again, you know, like, the part where you're supposed to go up on the elevator. I don't think this was my first playthrough. It might have been on one of my replays, where I ran out of ammo and my knife was broken. So I had no means to defend myself. And it's just, you might as well just give me a game over at this point. And it feels frustrating, because it's just like, I never get what I want. And I never, like, RE4 original had adaptive difficulties. So if you were doing really, really, really well, you might get less ammo. But if you started, like, maybe dying once, you'd get more ammo. But even if you were doing really, really, really well and you never fucking died, you still generally had enough ammo to get through almost every single situation, unless you really, really could not aim for shit, or you were just like, I'm gonna run past every single pickup, or I'm gonna intentionally miss every single shot just for the lulz. Whereas in RE4 Remake, it just felt far more frustrating, and it felt like the iframes were fucked up, because in RE4 and RE5, if I like jump off of a ledge and an enemy swings, I don't get hit. Whereas in RE4 Remake, I jump off a ledge and an enemy swings and I still get hit. And I think also because of the additional aggression, there's like far more instances of getting like stun-locked by enemies, which didn't...
Yes.
It never really happens
terrible.
to me all that much in OG RE4.
Yeah, I got stun-locked so many times. Like, God, that like final... One of the final areas in the on the island, where basically you have to like pull 2 levers to open a gate to get through. I was just like, I got it. Or at one point, I got stuck on a ladder because somebody threw a Molotov at me, and I couldn't let go of the ladder, and I was just like taking damage constantly. Yeah, and I burned to death because because the game wouldn't let me release the ladder, but also like I was on fire. It also just allowed me to get on fire on the ladder, and I was just like, hey guys, maybe don't.
Yeah, like I definitely don't dislike the game, and I definitely think it may be one of the, like, it's probably in my top 10 Resident Evil games, right? Maybe I gotta think about it more. But like in terms of like, does it surpass the original for me? And it's a very, very easy answer, no. Like there's some moments that I think were had substantial glow up and were really effective. I like the stronger the minecart section. I fucking love that section. It's great.
Yes.
The music in that scene slaps real fucking
11
hard.
Is my favorite chapter of the game.
It's so good.
And I was shocked when James told me that Lewis isn't in he dies way earlier in the original.
Oh yeah. Way earlier.
But he's so cool and so much fun.
He's still pretty great in the original, but he's definitely more fleshed out in this game, and they kind of go a little more in depth. In the original game, he's far more mysterious. Like he's a researcher for Los Illuminados, but you don't quite exactly know his backstory. There was kind of a running theory that he was maybe ex-Umbrella, but that was never really explicitly said, because one of the things with OG RE4 is the story was 100% backseat because of how much of a development hell that game was. Like when Shinji Mikami took over the reins of the game, he was just like, we need to fucking nail this gameplay. It doesn't matter what the fucking story is. We'll figure it out as we go, basically. Because OG RE4, for those who are unaware, went through like an insane development hell period where it, I think it was in development for like 7 years, and there was like 4 or 5 different completely scrapped versions of the game. One of which actually was turned into Devil May Cry. The others,
They will cry.
Yeah, the others, they were like shown off like as a trailer, but then development wasn't going well, and they just killed the project and started over from scratch. The only thing that was consistent throughout the entire process was it was going to be set in Europe, and Leon was going to be the protagonist. That's it. And then after like years and years of development, I think Shinji Mikami took over in like 2003, and that was like the final time when it got rebooted, and he's like, no, I need to fucking right this ship. This game needs to fucking get out the goddamn door. And so it's very cheesy and cornbally and silly and light on its narrative, but like it fits the tone. And I do appreciate elements that got upgraded to like improve the narrative or add like more thematic tissue to Resident Evil 2. Like there was kind of a running theory that Leon was more quippy in OG RE4 because of like PTSD, and that's how he copes with his trauma. And I do appreciate that that's how they're kind of like going with RE4 Remake. Or the fact that Leon's knife in RE4 Remake is the knife that Marvin gave him from in RE2. Nice. It's a super nice touch. And Luis is 100% now confirmed to be a former Umbrella agent. And like this is his redemption, helping Leon and Ashley. It adds a little more weight to his character and more depth. And it's neat. But then there's just other elements that feel a little narratively weaker. Like, one of the things that is iconic about the original game is the fact that the main two big antagonists, Ramon Salazar and Osmond Sadler, will frequently radio you over your comm system, because they, like, when you remember, Kat, when your radio system gets cut off and you can't speak to Hunnigan anymore. That's because of the enemies, and they'd, like, come in on your radio and, like, have a one-on-one conversation with Leon. So it adds more depth and weight to their characters, even if the dialogue is just cheesy action schlock, right? It adds more of a presence to them. And because that was... Yeah, exactly. Like, again, the stupid shit of, like, I sent my right hand after you. Your right hand comes off. It's dumb, but it adds, like, this level of interaction between the characters. And that was sorely missing here. Like, Salazar and Sadler both didn't really have much of a presence in this game. Not to mention, it even kind of creates a bit of a continuity error in one instance, in their attempt of, like, maintaining consistency with the original game, where when Leon gets thrown down the pit, right? In the original game, Leon's thrown down the pit, and he saves himself because he has the super spy gadget grappling hook. And Salazar is listening in on a thing. He's like, oh, I haven't heard him hit the ground yet. And Leon, being a cheeky little fuck, shoots the speaker system, which kind of, like, causes a loud noise and annoys Salazar. So we see a scene of him sending his right hand to check in on Leon. Where in the remake, we don't get any of that. Leon just falls and manages to grab onto a chain and survive. But we don't have any sequence of Salazar realizing that Leon is still alive. So why does Salazar send his right hand down there? Why does he send his goon down there? In the remake, it did come off, yes. Like, it happened in the original, but there's no reason for it in the remake outside of it happened in the original.
Yeah, I didn't think about that when I first went through it either.
I didn't either, to be honest. I kind of... The lore I kind of made up in my head was that this is just where that thing lives now. Like, maybe there's not really, like, you know, maybe it's a little bit out of control, and it's just kind of like, yeah, we're just gonna have it guard this spot. It's just gonna fuck around, do its own thing.
Yeah, no, we lost out on cheesy one-liners because they cut that stuff. And it's like, yeah, maybe the villains are technically more realistic and grounded now, but they have less of a presence. It's kind of like my issue, like with Resident Evil Village, where Mother Miranda has no fucking presence throughout the entire... Like, she's built up, sure, but then she just kind of pops up at the end of the game as, like, surprise, motherfucker. She doesn't have that, like, tangible relationship that Lady Dimitrescu or Heisenberg had.
She's not just by she's overshadowed by all four of the other motherfuckers. Yes, even Moreau.
Oh god,
best boy.
Yes.
I'm the best. Yeah, so it's
shocking, but yes.
I need to go through the game again, and maybe I'll agree.
Oh yeah, because you only went through it the one time.
Yeah,
it was a single. I think you beat it in one sitting, which is a pretty intense stream.
Holy shit!
I did, yes.
Yeah,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, but
there's a couple games I've gone through like that too.
Yeah, I've had one or two on stream that I did. In fact, my very first intentional 12-hour stream was for celebrating 100 followers, and I did that with Control, and I started that game, and I beat that game in one 13-hour session on stream.
Damn.
It was pretty intense. I also did that with...
Is that plat or just story?
No, that was just a first story playthrough and everything like that.
Okay.
I
was like, if you got the plat in 13 hours, went back and rebeat what's his face, Mr. something,
whatever his fucking name is,
that fucking asshole that was like the worst fucking boss fight I've ever had to fucking deal with. Yeah, I would have been like, holy shit, James.
No, this is just base story. Another one that I did...
Mr. Tomasi.
Yes, Tomasi, yes.
Motto.
Yes.
One of the other ones that I did was actually a Resident Evil 3 remake. Lee was there at least at the start of that. I started playing that at midnight from the moment it launched. I need to... The VOD might still be somewhere on my computer. and if I can find it, I want to upload it. And in one 9-hour session, I beat that game on hardcore, and I ended at like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Jesus, Jam.
It was
awesome.
It was an intense ride that was initially fun until the various grievances I have with Resident Evil 3 Remake popped in, especially in hardcore towards the end of the game. But it was still a fun experience, staying up till like 6 o'clock in the morning beating a fucking brand new game. It was neat.
It feels good crushing that out. I had a spectacular one. I did the midnight release for StarCraft 2 when that first came out, and I did the in-person at Best Buy, lining up like it's for fucking concert tickets, and got in there and grabbed the box, the physical fucking thing, because it was back in the day. Rushed home, and I booted the campaign and did not stop until 1 p.m.
I did that with Operation
about
Raccoon
13
City.
hours, beat the campaign, and I'm just like, I was so mentally and emotionally exhausted, and fuck yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it's a wild experience, and I would love to do it again if I can ever find the time and the game to do so. But we'll see. Anyways, Rent, what are your 3 favorite games of all time?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
They have no order. I did briefly speak about Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Excellent.
It holds up a lot of sentimental value for me due to a lot of the peeps that I grew up with after school, because I lived in an apartment complex, so we would go over to either like my house or like another friend's house, and after school we'll go over. We'll play the multiplayer till like 10 at night, just like Monday through Friday. Like a couple of us had like our own copy, so I had my own copy too. I don't know. I have no idea what happened to it. I did also enjoy replaying the story mode over and over again. It is definitely like one of my favorite games, of course. I would say for my second one would be Donkey Kong Country 2.
Let's go!
I had a bit of a problem with like deciding either that one or DKC 1. However, I sunk way more hours on DKC 2. I love the soundtrack. Dixie Kong is my favorite Kong. I hate Kiddy Kong and DKC 3, so that is not contender.
Kiddy Kong is pretty annoying, but I prefer Kiddy Kong to Chunky Kong. Chunky Kong is just low rent Kiddy Kong.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
These are the hot takes you come to the Gooncast for.
The levels were pretty great. I did, when I first played that game, I did play the GBA version first. And then I went on to play the original SNES. There's not really a big difference other than I think it's just like the buttons, but that's pretty much it. And I couldn't really decide on a third one. Let me get back to you on that one.
No, Silent Hill 3?
Silent Hill 3? It is on there, but
That's not your favorite game of all time? I figured that would be on there.
No. It's not my favorite game of all time.
Oh. That's spicy.
It is my favorite Silent Hill game. I know I briefly talked about it on the stream where it's like I have like 2 different lists of like story wise and then gameplay wise, but for me that is gameplay wise. Story wise would probably be from the first 4 games would be Silent Hill 4.
Silent Hill 4 is a really good narrative.
Yeah, that's underrated.
It's only
a very good story.
It's only been enhanced by the recent discovery that we made of the circumcision theory.
Foreskin. Please present the uncut gem.
Oh my god.
I don't know if you watched that video that I've linked multiple times, chat, but it's a fucking wild ride.
You know what? I should at some point, 100%.
You really should.
Great.
It's a great video.
It's fantastic.
It's the TLDR of it.
I'm excited. I'm excited for whenever I have time. It's just every time I'm like, should I watch a 50-minute video about foreskin?
Oh, it's not 50. It's only like 20 minutes.
It's a stealth 20.
All
Yeah.
right. Nonetheless, I'm like, is
It's
this
20
the
minutes
content
to
I wanna
change
hear
your
right
life.
now?
Yeah, it's about like a Wikipedia.
fair.
It's about an edit war on the Silent Hill wiki from one insane person, and the insane person also happened to be like one of the admin there. So it was really contentious because he could basically like do all this shit almost unchecked outside of like the other admin. And like Whang's reactions to some of this are fantastic, especially this one part where like again he's looking over like the old version of the wiki, and the guy's like presenting his evidence, and it's a screenshot of like I think it's the hospital, and it's like this rack that has this large piece of skin on it, and the guy interprets this as like giant foreskin, or it's like it's foreskin symbolism, and Whang just goes, "Man, that is a big ass foreskin," and just starts giggling intensely of just how stupid this fucking thing. It is a wild fucking ride, especially when it turns out this guy was also like the admin of other wikis, and he was like editing other wikis with foreskin conspiracy theory shit.
Oh my god.
Like it is a deep dive rabbit hole of just this is the funniest goddamn shit imaginable.
It's fantastic.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's Whang's video content in general is really fucking hysterical and funny and interesting on like mostly internet history, sometimes video game history. He does occasionally, like some of his videos are of gross topics like the history of the Goatsy image, and somehow he's still able to get monetization on these videos.
Wow.
But it's fascinating internet history, and sometimes of like the origins of memes, like the classic. He recently did a video about Ram Ranch and the origin of Ram Ranch. He's done a video of the trumpet fight, infamous meme of that little person screaming, "Who the fuck are you? I walked Bob Dylan up on stage. Who the fuck are you to play trumpets out here?" The infamous "How can she slap" video. And then all sorts of other like interesting bits of video game history in regards to like where are certain voice actors and like the quest to find certain voice actors. Like Harry Mason's voice actor in the original Silent Hill was only credited as Michael G, and nobody knew what that was. They were like, "Oh my god, like, you know, who is this person?" So it actually was like this big internet mystery and investigation into uncovering who this person was. Like, what is this alias? Who is this person? And like, why is he credited as Michael G? And when they found him, like they actually managed to track him down and find him. And the reason why he's credited as Michael G is his name is Michael Gwynn, and the reps at like his agency in Japan felt that Gwyn would be too difficult to say for a Japanese speaker. So they were like, you know, what can we come up with? And he's like, well, when I was a kid, we used to just always refer to each other by like our first name and last initial. So like I was called Michael G. And he's like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, let's go with that. And he had a prolific career in voice acting as just Michael G, and nobody knew who he was. And he also has videos on like Resident Evil 1.5, the infamous scrapped version of the original Resident Evil 2, and some of the voice actors or live action actors of the original Resident Evil, because all of that, since that was back in the 90s and they didn't give a shit, people were just credited by their first names, and the live action actors in the OG Resident Evil are not the voice actors. So there's actually two different people playing those characters. And it's videos on that, or videos on mysterious YouTube videos, or videos on mysterious songs, and it's a solid channel, despite some occasional gross out stuff that you may stumble across, like the history of the infamous My Little Pony jar.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh god. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You can easily just skip those videos and just go to whatever's.
Let's move on to
No, I disagree. No, the next question for the Gooncast is what doll would you put in your jar?
Oh god. No. All right.
God.
Well, I mean, I guess Rentsy, if you don't have a,
I do.
oh,
It is Majora's Mask.
hey, let's go, best Zelda. Woo!
Solid.
That was my first Zelda game, and the
Mhm.
first that I ever 100%ed
All right.
back in N64 days.
Solid pick.
I gotta
That's
do.
awesome.
Yes,
That
I
is-
grew up
Do
with
you-
that one. I did not own Ocarina of Time.
Do you ever
Oh.
have you ever replayed it on stream, or do you ever have any? Do you have any plans to ever replay it on stream?
I want to replay it again. I just have to
Cool.
find my original copy, and it's
Uh-huh.
in my mom's house.
Yeah, of course.
All right, I just
Mhm.
I would love to watch. I've actually never I've heard a lot about it, and I've watched like other people play through it before. So I'd love to watch. I'd love to watch you replay play
I
through it
did
again.
I played a little bit of the SNE the emulator on the Switch, but it's not the same.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not the
No.
same.
The controls are very janky.
I just had to
Mhm.
add another Discord soundboard thing just for this moment since it's my favorite Zelda game.
Wow.
Yeah, it just had to get it
Great.
out of there. It's perfect. It's perfect. I'm glad Discord added a soundboard so I can now add like spicy shit every now and then. All right. So I guess if that is those are your three favorite games,
Yes.
and Lee does not have anything that we have to tell him to not put in his body.
Uh-huh.
What has everybody been up to over the past couple weeks? I suppose we can start with our little guest Rent. What have you seen anything new or played anything new, or what have you been up to over the past couple weeks?
Regularly just streaming, but on my downtime, it's just playing either Fortnite, DBD, some Fallout 4, just trying to just enjoy a bit of it.
Sure.
I
Cool.
have not seen anything new. I did want to go watch the Super Mario movie because I'm in it.
Oh,
wait.
that's true.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he's Toad.
Yeah, I'm Toad.
Oh, excellent. Of course you are.
I was supposed to
You
go watch it
fool.
last week. I was supposed to go watch it last week, but I just got lazy, so I'm just gonna wait until it comes out like on demand or something.
Well, without getting into spoilers, though, you did see Scream 6, and we're planning on watching that
Oh.
relatively soon for the Gooncast.
I
Did
guess
you
that
like
counts
it?
as the last movie that I watched, and
Did-
yes, I did enjoy it.
Oh,
I enjoyed it a
good.
bit more than 5.
Okay, cool.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Solid.
Exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can go next.
Yeah,
No
go.
one else
Yeah,
wants
go
to-
next.
Get in
So,
there.
I did actually go see the Super Mario movie. I was like, had like a bad day, so Will was like, let's go watch a movie. And I'm sure y'all have heard the like controversy around it, which is so silly to
Mhm.
say because it's like a fucking Mario movie. Why
Yeah,
is there
I've heard
controversy?
bits and bobs of different things.
This is the first I'm hearing about a controversy.
it's
Elaborate.
stupid.
There's a lot of critics that really hated it, to the point where like one critic basically called it like the death of cinema.
I thought that was Marvel.
Martin
Which is-
Scorsese.
Yeah.
Which yes, I'm like, to me, I'm like, that's very, very silly. That's such a, like, you went to the Mario movie and you hated it so much that you're like
That's
like,
it.
I'm like, I
Movie's
can't-
over.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Hmm.
like, I can't imagine somebody hating this movie that much.
They
But then-
they have not seen a lot of movies. They have not seen a Neil Breen movie.
Exactly. I'm sitting there, I'm like, did you even see Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Because like, that's the death of cinema right
Did
there.
you see Fear
Oh,
Street?
definitely. I hated it.
Did you see
Yes,
Fear Street?
Yes, exactly.
Did
But
you?
like, but then there were people apparently on the other side, which I didn't see any of this, but I saw from like YMS's like review of the movie, where he was like directly responding to fanboys that were like defending the movie as like brilliant, and like people who hadn't even seen it yet. And it's just kind of like, okay, everybody, like,
Yeah.
everybody just needs to relax. I thought it was fine. There were genuine moments that I like had like, you know, good chuckles, and I was like smiling, and I really liked the art direction. I will say I do know somebody who did like consulting art direction on it, so probably maybe a little bit biased, but you know, like, I was just kind of like, yeah, this was it was a fun enough romp. Like, very much I was impressed with like the pacing, where like, you know, as an adult I was like sitting there being like, a little kid is going to have their attention captured the entire time with this, because there's always something like cute and fun happening on screen. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's about all I feel like this movie needed to do. You know? Is there a super deep, compelling plot? No. But like, also I was just kind of like, it's got some cute animation. It's got a lot of really like adorable references to Mario. Like, I was just like, hey, I dig it. I liked seeing like there was like a bit of a like Luigi's Mansion riff when like Luigi's by himself and like really scared of a bunch of shit. I was like, hey, I'm a simple bitch, and I thought that was kind of neat.
Cool.
The other things I've been doing is I've been playing a lot of TTRPGs. I'm actually still in like 2 D&D campaigns, so I haven't really done a lot of like
Fuck yeah.
alternative, like, you know, which I normally very much appreciate going for the not D&D stuff, because I'm a little bit over 5e in a lot of ways. But I started playing in a campaign for a system called The Between, which is basically like a sort of monster of the week. You play as like Victorian era or early London, like Sherlock Holmesy era paranormal detectives. And it sort of plays out like a TV show, and there's a lot of really interesting mechanics that come into play that I think solve a lot of the problems I have with some TTRPGs, where like sometimes I feel like there are certain ones that encourage main character syndrome or spotlight hogging. And this one actually has like, it has a mechanic called paint the scene, where it also like it kind of removes some of the pressure from like the DM to just like manage everything. So paint the scenes are effectively like the DM asks a question that like paints the scene, quote unquote. And each person gets to like add a detail to the world as like part of, yeah. So like one thing we got asked, I remember in like one of the early sessions, was like we were investigating a haunted house, and the couple that was living in this house, the question was, how can we tell that they're living outside their means? And then each of us got to, yeah, exactly. It's like you get these little juicy questions like that, and then each of us gets to say, oh, it's because their clothes are like rattier than you would expect, or like I don't know. There was a bunch of really cool answers, clever answers, and I've never seen
groovy.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen a mechanic like that come into play in like a non-duet game. And I dug it so much.
Yeah,
and
as
I'm
a
really
forever
enjoying it.
dungeon master, I really appreciate that.
Yes, exactly. I like the stuff that kind of like breaks that, breaks it down a little bit, so there's less pressure on just one person to come up with every single thing. And it's very cool. On a kind of note related to that, I ended up picking up a couple of visual novels that are based in the Vampire the Masquerade universe.
Ooh.
Yeah, so VTM is like an interesting, to me, it's an interesting TTRPG, because I feel like the Venn diagram of people who want to play VTM and people I want to play VTM with are two completely separate circles. Where I'm sitting there, I'm like, so much of this sounds so cool, but then I actually get into like the mechanics of it, and I sit there and I go, I can see who this appeals to and what it appeals to. It very much appeals to that, like, I'm going to talk about my OC for 6 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And not really,
there you go.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, okay, that's not
vanity
why
sessions.
I play. Exactly. And I'm like, that's not the really great thing about The Between is we rolled up our characters in like 20 minutes, and it was entirely like, there's drop downs, there's like aren't like tables you can roll on for stuff, there's like it's basically just like construct these characters or come up with your own thing, whatever. but it's like, hey, we can just kind of like, they give us building blocks and we can build them together. And it's this, and also part of character creation is you give each other items that you think would fit each other's character. So it like also encourages you to think about one another's characters, not just like, oh, here's my badass vampire hunter and he's got a sword cane and he does all this stuff. It's like, no. Your friends are gonna tell you what you get. Like it's very cool shit like that.
Sometimes you get those TTRPGs that it's like, oh, this is a world I really want to sink my teeth into, but like you need to have the players who are going to get the same positive experience from that you will running it. Like,
yes, exactly.
I would love to have a table of people to play Cyberpunk TTRPG with.
Ooh, yes.
But that's because like, okay, one of the stats in Cyberpunk is like accounting.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And
Call of Cthulhu has a counting stat too.
And like the creator of the game, Mike Pondsmith, I believe his name is.
I think that's right.
Someone asked him like, like, what do you do with the accounting stat? And he's like, oh, I had a player in a game that I was game master for who like poured all of his extra stat points into accounting and wound up like having a net runner write this virus, and then he put his accounting stat through it to like drain the bank accounts of one of the super corporations and bankrupt them. That's like, yo,
that's awesome.
That fucking rules. Like, but are players gonna get the same satisfaction out of that as like 6 samurai sword fight with some teched out cyborg? Maybe not, but like me liking that weird storytelling stuff is like, yo, I want to bankrupt Militech.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like finding the right table for these things. Because right now I'm I really dig running the like Lovecraft universe type stuff. Your Call of Cthulhu or your even I haven't run it yet, but even like Delta Green or something like that, or one of the maybe more rules light. I think there's like a Cthulhu, like a Gumshoe Cthulhu that's very minimalist. But like it's like finding the right table to really like jump in and want to drive their characters insane with me is like it's tough. So yeah, I feel that. And then the other thing is, no, I have not started Tears of the Kingdom yet. I will be soon.
Hey, that's also one of my updates, that I have not been playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
My copy literally just arrived today, and I'm not touching it until I stream and finish Breath of the Wild.
Well, okay, so that's the thing. I am not. I'm gonna order Tears of the Kingdom shortly, and the reason I have not yet is because I am still working on my platinum for Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, mine was, I got a collector's edition of Tears of the Kingdom, so mine got delayed, and it's like, even though I'm not planning on playing it anytime soon, Nintendo collector's editions are notoriously hard to get a hold of, and I am a sucker for steelbook cases. That's literally the only reason why I got it, is I want a steelbook case.
Yeah, I probably am not going to get that game anytime soon. Yeah. Might just wait. I know it's not gonna go on sale because Nintendo games never really do.
Yes, yeah. That was the only thing being like, well, why should I wait? Because it's not like I'll be able to pay less money for it in the future.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait it out a little bit.
Yeah.
There's like a couple games that came out, like like Jedi Survivor as well. Just gonna wait on those.
Yeah. So I would say Jedi Survivor is a really good candidate to wait for. I ended up picking it up when I did because the platinum difficulty according to PowerPix is only 3 out of 10, and I was just like, I can do that. I can get a plat real quick. And while I will keep this as spoiler free as possible, while I enjoyed the story at a certain point, once it got to like it had pacing issues. I don't think it was very strong in the beginning. But toward the end it was more like, okay, interesting things are happening, and I liked where this went, even though I think that it didn't do a great job of setting things up in a way that was compelling to me personally. I do think that this is like an early or like early gold, late beta build. And I say that because
I've heard it's a hot
I
mess.
and that's the thing. The other two people I know who are playing it have reported either no bugs or very minor like visual bugs, which I've been getting in spades. But most notably for me, I have hit 6 non-progs.
Oof.
Most of them were minor things where it was I got to like an encounter area, the music was playing, but enemies failed to spawn. And so, there's also no restart checkpoint, which is another big frustration. You have to actually like quit out of the game and reload your save to restart checkpoint, which is if you're going to release a game like this that's not ready and you're going to clearly waive bugs in an effort to get the game out the door, a restart checkpoint is kind of the bare minimum in my opinion. But I won't hassle them too much because I'm sure it's just an engine limitation or something like that. But anyway,
it's probably because they're trying to ape on the Dark Souls system of like the bonfire thing.
Sure,
and but at the same time, it's like
I'm trying to be generous about that and just say it's probably
just
a limitation and not them making a bad decision.
Yeah, it's just a nasty fucking bug to run into.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that I have hit 2 major non-progs that lost me like 15 minutes of gameplay. Like I had to redo like an entire quest or like redo an entire area. And that was extremely frustrating. There was one where I managed to get the game in some kind of state where it wasn't responding to my inputs for like melee or jumping. So I was in a combat encounter and I couldn't use my sword. I couldn't hit enemies. Luckily I was with a buddy AI, so she managed to clean everybody up for me, but I was just kind of like, okay, this kind of sucks. But then I continued progressing onward and I jumped onto a cliff somewhere like unrelated and I couldn't climb from the ledge I was on and I also couldn't drop from it, so I was just stuck on this ledge and I had to restart checkpoint and I lost an entire quest worth of progress. And then another instance where I tried to jump tackle an enemy from above. I hit like a contextual prompt came up and I hit it and the game glitched me through the ceiling. So I got stuck up in the ceiling and I managed to like figure out how to like fall out of the world and kill myself that way, but then it respawned me still stuck in the ceiling. So yeah, I once again had to restart my close out, restart, and I lost 15 minutes of progress. So because of issues like that, like major non-progs I've been running into, I ended up cranking it all the way down to like story mode. Which I played the original Jedi Fallen Order on the hardest difficulty it shipped with, I think, which was like
Jedi Grandmaster, I think.
Oh no, and then I played it on the second to hardest. I played it on yeah, I played it on like Jedi Knight, I think, or whatever. Because I was like, I will see how I can do. And it wasn't too bad. I struggled a lot, but I thought it was decent. But just sitting there having to contend with bugs this bad, I was like, this is I mean, I do struggle a little bit with like the Elden Ring sort of like you lose progress if you die and you can't get your stuff back. I do struggle with that a little bit. It does frustrate me and it kind of like makes me really anxious when I play. So like, Jedi, on top of having that mechanic where if you die and you drop stuff, like, like it does have a lot of like it's cribbing on Dark Souls. To have that on top of bugs eating my progress, I was just like, I'm not enjoying myself. I'm going to make this like the challenge here is more contending with all of the bugs than it is like the actual game itself, which
that's really unfortunate to hear.
It is incredibly unfortunate because like I can see there's a good game in there if only the distributors had given them an extended deadline, honestly. Like it's just like it's there. It's almost there. You're missing polish, basically. And yes, there are design decisions I don't agree with, and I don't find like compelling, but it's trivial in comparison to the amount of like bugs that I as a developer would consider unshippable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, that's my week.
Fuck yeah.
That's my weeks. Yeah.
Let's see. I have had a felt little week or two. I mean, the one immediately on my mind is I just before recording the podcast finished watching Slender Man with Saber.
And, what a piece of shit!
I'll have more of an opportunity to talk about that one during the 3rd annual Golden Rockos when I get to the top 5 worst films of the year list.
Yeah.
I can't.
Holy shit.
I'm really mad because I couldn't join them for this, and also I've already seen Slender, so I can't include it on like a worst of list. But like, I'm gonna
chime in briefly with my thoughts on this, and also for context. We started watching this last night as part of our because it's
a Joey King movie.
Yeah, in my Discord, we've been doing weekly watch parties of mostly good movies, but we recently started introducing bad movies, ideally so bad they're good, for entertainment value, because bad movies can be a lot of fun. And we decided to have a Joey King night where we do Wish Upon, which is we've already done an episode on, and Wish Upon is
Praise the Queen
hilarious.
Of the Multiverse.
Yes.
And I figured, let's pair it with Slender, because it's supposed to be terrible. I haven't seen it, but this could be fun to riff on. And it was so boring that it took us probably a half an hour to 40 minutes to get through the first 20 minutes of the movie, because we kept pausing the movie and getting derailed and talking about situations where we were exposed to weird pornography from friends.
What?
Yeah, it was a weird, wild night, and I made
El
Topo, which I've already explained on the podcast before, and I'm not going to explain it again.
Yep.
I don't remember.
Listen to it.
Yeah, I don't remember the episode that it was on, but I know I explained it on the cast. But basically, I made the executive decision, because we were fucking bored to tears, to stop it and watch the other Gooncast favorite, Suburban Sasquatch, instead. But this morning, because I spent $4 renting this thing, I was like, I want to finish the fucking movie. I'm gonna watch it this afternoon, and Lee decided to join me.
Because I'm a fool.
90% to 95% of the movie is just, it's bad and it's boring and it's stupid, but not the kind of stupid. 5% of it is really entertainingly weird, artistically bad choices that are just really, 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 really funny.
Yes.
And that kind of was making things a little better. But then it gets
just ever so slightly.
Yeah, ever so slightly. But then it gets to the final monologue of the movie, right before the end credits.
Oh, Jesus.
Where I got legitimately angry. Like, vehemently angry. This is fucking offensive. Where they were talking about how the Slender Man sickness makes you do things. Like horrible things.
What kind of things?
Yeah.
They said horrible things, and I'm like, fuck you, movie, because I was looking this up. You know what you're doing.
Yep.
I was looking this up, and for context, for those who are unaware, tragically in 2014. There were these two little dipshit asshole kids from Wisconsin who became obsessed with the Slender Man. And they tried to sacrifice their friend to the Slender Man and nearly stabbed her to death. Their friend thankfully recovered, but it was a big controversial moment. And it's a tragedy, and it's horrible, and it partially forever tainted Slender Man, which was just previously just this fun, if not maybe overexposed, stupid creepypasta.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's definitely a little overexposed considering, I think the game that came out was like kind of like the peak of it, where it's like, okay, that's where it should have ended, probably. You know, like that was enough. The Marble Hornet stuff was great, and then that game was great, and then it was just kind of like, this is too much. Let's end this.
And then the movie entered production 2 years after the fact, and it came out 4 years after that event. And part of the reason why this movie is such a boring, unwatchable piece of shit is the trailer's false advertising. Because in like the 23rd hour, the studio got cold feet and removed a bunch of footage from the movie because they didn't want to be remotely associated with the real world tragedy, and they didn't want to show kids dying, even though they're making a horror movie about kids dying.
Yep.
So like there's a sequence, like just characters disappear in the movie.
Yes.
And they're not commented on, despite the fact that it's like we see their deaths in the trailer, where one of the friends stabs herself in the eye with a scalpel, and the love interest throws himself off of a roof. And these scenes are just cut and absent, and the characters are never fucking heard from again because, again, the studio got cold feet in the 23rd hour and didn't want to be associated with the controversy. But then this movie has a fucking line that associates itself with the controversy and feels like genuine, like actually associates itself with the controversy.
It's pretty gross.
Because like, again, the two suicide sequences, I don't associate it with real world shit. It's just horror movie nonsense. People are being spooked. Whatever. But the ending line 100% ties itself into the controversy, and it's just gross and fucking offensive. And it's just it went from being this is a really bad movie that's worse than the Bye Bye Man, with an occasional moment of like an occasional moment of
Bye Bye Man had that great shower curtain.
Yeah, that's what I was saying during the movie. That the
that is
Bye Bye Man,
exactly what Saber said.
The Bye Bye Man had the wallpaper of
I will
the
vouch
fish
for that.
sucking the man's dick. Yeah, Ren, I don't know if you've seen Bye Bye Man unrated or noticed it, but there's a scene.
I've seen Bye Bye Man with Tori before, but this was like maybe like 2017. Have you seen
the fish ratio?
Well, the unrated version has a sequence where they're standing there, and there's wallpaper in their house, and the wallpaper is of a man getting his dick sucked by a fish.
Yep. That's the scene.
That's the scene.
The scene is there's wallpaper.
No, you don't get context.
I'm not
there's dirty wallpaper in the bathroom. That's it.
There's lewd bestiality wallpaper.
Why?
I don't know why.
Because fuck that fish's mouth.
You,
that's
you know.
I'm gonna go Bye Bye Man now.
Yeah. There's like
good luck.
There's like
and sorry.
There's like 5% of this movie that is like entertainingly bad. But it, like, I could have, like, this movie might have been lower. Like, again, spoilers for the Golden Rockos, but I'm probably going to include this as, like, my least favorite thing of the year, unless something worse comes out within the next, like, 8 months, because that final line was so fucking offensive and disgusting for me. Where I'm just like, fuck you, movie. Fuck you, screenwriter. Fuck you, filmmakers. This is just abhorrent. A girl nearly lost her fucking life. And you're going like, oh, the Slender Man makes you do terrible things IRL. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, not to derail what you've been up to, Lee.
So yeah, like I said, I watched Slender Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, I saw some live stand-up comedy, which I don't do very often. I went to San Diego, met up with my sponsor, and we saw Taylor Tomlinson, who is she is doing a tour right now to tighten up her next hour for Netflix.
Oh, nice.
And it's gonna be a really funny special when it drops. She's fucking great. Some of you who have caught the Gooncast before know that I have an interest in bodybuilding, powerlifting, that whole strength and fitness world. I'm a little bit of a gym rat myself. And I've been listening to a fantastic podcast called Mark Bell's Power Project. Just a couple of dudes who are really enthusiastic about the whole powerlifting and bodybuilding world, just talking shit, and if you're into that sort of world, the Power Project's fantastic. And I am playing a whole lot of Honkai Star Rail. Oh my god, I love me some Honkai Star Rail. And the husbandos. And the husbandos.
Yep. Sorry, don't let me forget it.
Delicious himbo japard.
Oh.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic game. It's a Chinese gacha RPG in the same vein as Genshin Impact, except turn-based combat as opposed to real time. And it's a really entertaining little number. If you're not familiar with gacha games, they will try to break your wallet and do pay to win tactics and all that shit, but this one is not as aggressive as other ones that I've dabbled in before, so I'm able to enjoy it without, breaking the bank, which is fantastic. And it's starting to catch on a lot of steam. A lot of different YouTubers and shit are starting to play this and stream it. So I think it's kind of destined to nip at the heels of Genshin Impact as far as like how much it catches on. And that'll be cool because then I could say I was here from day one. Everybody else who joins in is posers.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I get my day one cred, you fucking losers. But yeah, so that's been great. And and then I'm gonna go see some live music this week. One of my old favorite bands, Lacuna Coil's coming around, and seeing another fantastic group called the Birthday Massacre open for them. So it's gonna be a good fucking show.
Birthday Massacre's really good. Yeah,
awesome. I'm starting to line up all my concert gigs again. September I'm seeing Ghost. October I'm seeing Polyphia. My fucking boys, my bottom boys, Dream Theater are coming in July.
Interesting.
So it's gonna be a good fucking year for shows. So that's what I've been up to.
Nice. Well, as I briefly mentioned, I'm not playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I won't be for a while, but eventually I will be. I already ranted about my hatred of fucking Slender Man the movie. In terms of other shit, I recently got a key from Keymailer, the game called Forsake, which I want Kat to play at some point too, and maybe Lee if you're interested. It is a ghosty type game, similar-ish to like your Phazes and Forlorns and whatnot, but it's not like quite a Phaz clone. You're basically kind of like investigating various different like urban environments, and you're not strictly trying to like figure out what the ghost is. You'll know what the ghost is the moment you run into it. You're basically trying to complete specific objectives and side objectives, and then like the overall goal is like once you've completed like the main objectives, which is find 3 different trinkets throughout the map and bring them to a ritual area, and you lure the ghost to the ritual area and it like banishes it. But in the meantime, you get to like loot stuff and like find secrets and explore and whatnot. It's neat. It's got some jank to it, but it's fun. It's neat. I definitely had a lot of fun. It shows a lot of promise. I would like to stream more of it again in the future. I also recently played the demo for Sucker for Love, Date to Die For.
Yes!
Which is the sequel to Sucker for Love, First Date.
What is this?
It's great.
It is a comedy visual novel mixed with horror. It is
I like horror.
The first game.
Then you might like Sucker for Love.
You might like this. You might like Sucker for Love. The first game is you play as a dude who manages to get himself a copy of the Necronomicon from the works of like H.P. Lovecraft and typical cosmic horror stuff.
TLDR, he wants to summon eldritch horrors because he wants to smooch them.
Yes.
Yeah, he's an innocent soul smooch.
He's summoning horrors from beyond the scope of human comprehension and from beyond the stars, like Cthulhu, except for it's like a big titty anime waifu version of like Cthulhu, Hatsur and
Yep.
Nyarlathotep because he wants a kiss from them. And
with curves that defy non-Euclidean geometry.
yes,
Oh, okay.
and
Looks like I'm gonna be in there.
Yeah.
Sucker for Love 2. I'm not entirely sure which Eldritch being this is, but you play this young woman in the demo who is going back to her hometown of Sacramento, and it feels very, very much Innsmouth-esque cat. And various people have been disappearing, and there's the Sacramento stare. And you go back to your old place, and you accidentally, because you're trying to escape and not get killed, you accidentally summon this eldritch being named Roxanne, who's basically like this big titty goat waifu.
Yeah, she's supposed to be the black goat of the woods, which is another name for the eldritch god Shub-Niggurath.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
there
would
we
like
go.
to see some pictures, please.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yes, that's right. I have.
She's got big goat whammos. It's great.
Yeah.
The goat?
I turned into one of her spawn in a solo Cthulhu game called Alone Against the Frost. Yeah, it was great. I ate a man. It was
Nice.
really fun.
Yeah. So basically, the demo has you doing a handful of rituals for her, in order to basically, just figure out what the fuck is going on, and of course you're immediately attracted to this eldritch waifu from beyond the scope of human comprehension, and she's kind of into you, but also she's amused at the fact that that's Roxanne.
Yep.
And then I forgot their names, but here's Cthulhu and Hatsur and Catgirl Nyarlathotep at the top.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah, it's a mix of horror and comedy and dating sim. It's on PC Rent.
Did I hear something about a cat?
Yes, Catgirl Nyarlathotep.
Yeah.
I believe her name is.
I'm gonna bang another one.
There you go.
A cat is fine too.
Oh no, here I go banging again.
Yeah,
go banging cats again.
Yeah, and the last, it's a fun demo. I'm looking forward to the full game. The last thing I want to mention is another YouTuber I recently discovered. I linked it to UCat recently. Their channel is KyotoRobato, and they primarily discuss strange, mostly true crime cases that are relatively obscure from Japan. And they're they're very interesting. They sometimes cover solved cases. They sometimes cover unsolved cases. I find true crime to be fascinating, and especially when it's weirder or there's a lot of mystery to it, and the person who's covering it is doing their best to not be exploitative.
Yeah, as long as you don't sensationalize and exploit, then I also enjoy true crime, but I'm very wary about Netflix's models for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Netflix models are not so great. This channel reminds me a lot of Rainbot, because she also covers true crime cases. She'll also cover weirder mysteries or creepypasta stuff, but KyotoRobato primarily only focuses on true crime or real life mysteries, and they're usually very, very, very fascinating sort of things, and they do their best to be as respectful as possible and just discuss the sheer facts of the case as to what is known, what is unknown, etc., etc., etc. And they have a handful of videos that they've been releasing over the course of 2 years, and I managed to binge them all in the last week or so, and I highly recommend the channel. It's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been good, wholesome, and creepy. I just wait for more content since I've now run out.
Yes. Well, there you go.
All right, so if that does it, I think that wraps it up this episode.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Great pod, everybody.
Indeed.
Shall we sign ourselves out?
Yeah. So
it'll do until 10 years from now when somebody else inevitably remakes the Gooncast.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I'm going to remaster the Gooncast in about 10
It's gonna be
minutes.
an HD collection.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
Please,
Yeah.
please upres my textures, Jam. I would really
One-
appreciate that.
100%. So,
Thank you.
I guess Rentsy, go first. What do you do, and where can people find you?
What I do is amateur speedruns at the
Yeah.
Variety Bozo channel over at
Woo.
twitch.tv/Rentsy. You can find me there. Not a bozo, not a cutie,
You're cute.
but
And Bozo.
none of those.
All right, yeah. So
Amazing.
Rentsy's a speedrunner. He primarily focuses in horror titles, but he also, does variety stuff as well. It's basically similar to my content. If you happen to listen to my and watch my streams, you're not familiar with Rentsy, fucking give him a watch. He's a good friend of the channel, and he does a lot of really, really fun content. And
Number one fan.
No.
And then, of
Damn
course,
right.
I'm going to give a special shout out to the surprise guest Tori, who was on very
Hell
briefly.
yeah.
Rentsy's girlfriend, who also occasionally streams on Twitch. Give her a follow as well. I'll include her link in the channel in the description of this video as well.
Hell yeah.
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 Yeah, and then once again, I'm Cat, aka the Attack Cat. Probably not gonna stream for a while. Things have picked up in other aspects of my life, but you never know. And looking forward to talking about. We're definitely gonna be talking about a lot more good and garbage movies in the next couple weeks. So
Yeah,
stay tuned.
we got some more
Yeah.
episodes that are coming way
We got
sooner.
plans.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And this has been your boy Lee Alder, the Valley Jester. You can catch me on twitch.tv/Valley Jester. I'm back to streaming like 1 to 2 days a week doing Honkai Star Rail. And if you're not down with the Chinese waifu gotcha, then cool. Go fuck yourself. Go watch a different channel.
Yeah,
Because over at the Valley Jester, we're about heavy metal and anime titties.
Yeah, there you go. And once again, I'm James, also known as Saber0307. You can find me there on Twitch at that name, and also on YouTube. More recently, I've been streaming a lot of weird horror shit that I've gotten, along with a little bit of backlog stuff, a little bit of stuff that I just feel like doing for funsies. More recently, I've been diving back into Phaz as I'm trying to reach level 15,000 before the progression update comes, so I can get all the flair for when the level resets. It's going to be a hell of a grind. I'm fairly close to level 6,000 now, so it's going swimmingly. So there's going to be a lot of Phaz in the future. As I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to go through the Max Payne trilogy, trying to clear out my backlog. It's going to be fun. It's going to be terrible. Give it a watch if you want. Either way, this is another episode of the Gooncast. I'll take care of yourselves. Be excellent to each other. Stay safe. Rentsy's cute. Everybody else get fucked.
I'm not cute.